Chapter 201, The Game of Chess. The void stirred. It did not stir often. Black and unending, with stars that blinked in and out of existence like dying embers, the space belonged to only one being. One presence. The architect of ruin. He stood at the center of it all, massive, divine, impossible to fully look at. His form towered with obsidian skin marbled with glowing veins of red entropy. A cape made of collapsed galaxies draped over his shoulders, and his face was a sculpted mockery of creation, regal and monstrous all at once. His eyes burned twin lights, one gold, one void, and yet they flickered now. Zariel, 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 he muttered, voice shaking stars apart as he spoke the name. It echoed through realms long forgotten, bounced through memory and myth. He had waited, for centuries, for cycles beyond cycles, and still no sign of him. His massive fingers curled into a fist, creating a ripple that shattered 5 minor planes. Guess I have to go get him myself, he growled, then paused, frowning.
No.
That would be degrading for a being such as myself. He turned, walking slowly through the void. With each step, new rules of physics formed, then died. Universes were born in his wake and immediately unraveled. Then, the void shifted, a ripple unlike any he had made. The architect stopped, and then, without warning, something spiraled into existence. A form that didn't follow the rules of space or shape. Layers twisted over layers. A figure cloaked in robes that looped into themselves. A face hidden by a mask shaped like an infinite spiral, always turning, never ending. The spiral had arrived. The architect narrowed his eyes. And who the hell are you? The spiral bowed slightly, though it felt more like mockery than respect. I am the spiral, he said, his voice an unsettling harmony of tones. Mocking, smooth, distant. The one who sings in broken minds. The architect of whispers. The architect tilted his head. There is only one architect here. Of ruin, yes, the spiral agreed. But I am here with an offer. An offer. A shared grievance. Common thread. A name we both want to extinguish. The spiral raised a hand, and in it formed an image. Zariel. Joshua. Walking through the halls of the Zenith Arena. A crowd cheering. The architect's brow furrowed. You presume much. I do more than presume, the spiral replied. I plan. And now I am here to present that plan. The architect said nothing, so the spiral continued. You want Zariel to come to you, he said. But he won't. Not yet. He's too surrounded. Too hopeful. That needs to be broken. He spun a finger in the air, and a projection formed, Caden.
Adam.
Alice. The origin realm. We take pieces from around him. Not through war. Not through brute force. Through corruption. Through collapse. The architect watched. Go on. I've already sown seeds, the spiral said. But now I plant deeper ones. I introduce chaos in smaller ways. Twisting allies. Warping truths. Pulling threads from the inside. He gestured again. This time it was Alexandria. A sliver of darkness growing beneath her ribs. She is loyal, the spiral said. But hearts that feel betrayal become beautiful weapons. Then another motion. A city burned. Carrion soul, but different. Future. Ruined. The plan is simple, the spiral said. We poison what Zariel holds dear. One step at a time. And when he is weakened, when he loses just enough, he turned. You strike. Not here. Not in the void. But in a place that means something to him. I will draw him to the cradle of echoes, a convergence point between realms. The last place he ever smiled. The architect's voice rumbled. And what do you gain? The spiral tilted his head. I gain the spiral completed. The final curve. The last descent. And what do you need from me? When the moment comes, the spiral said. You meet him there, not as a force of ruin. Not yet, but as a promise of it. A shadow behind the storm. Let him see the future in your hands. Let him choose to step toward you. Silence. Then the architect grinned. You dance well. I spiral, the spiral replied. The architect turned to the void. Very well. But if this fails? It won't. A long pause. The spiral lowered his hand. The images faded. Zariel will walk into our hands, he said, because hope is heavy, and I will make him carry it until he breaks. The void pulsed. The plan had begun. Asterius. Aurora's eyes snapped open. The stars above Asterius were still, but her breath came out cold, like she just walked through the end of the world. She sat alone on the balcony of the floating archives, moonlight painting soft blue lines across her face. The vision still clung to her, heavy, loud, unfinished. Not just fragments, no. This time it had been clear. She had seen them. The architect, the spiral, two storms circling the same sea, pulling at Zariel's thread like hunters circling prey. She closed her eyes again, just for a second, letting the images echo. Joshua broken, Caden screaming into smoke, the skies of Crayon Soul torn in two, a throne made of ruin, and the spiral watching it all like it was some twisted masterpiece. Aurora opened her eyes again, and frowned. Deep, cold, not shaken, focused. Most people would have panicked, cried, warned the others. But Aurora wasn't most people. She stood up slowly, her coat fluttering behind her like a whisper of winter, and stepped toward the edge of the balcony, eyes scanning the city below. It pulsed beneath her, alive, blissfully unaware. Spirits are moving, she whispered to herself. Pieces are shifting. She tilted her head, and a faint smirk touched her lips. Looks like I'm being invited to the table now, because this wasn't war yet. No, this was the opening of a game. And if the spiral wanted to play, then she'd give him a game worth remembering. She turned, stepping into the shadows, her voice low but steady. Let's see how well he plays when someone flips the board. And just like that, Aurora vanished. Not in flash or flare, but like a piece that had simply left the board, to return when the spiral least expected. The game had begun. And Aurora? She never lost. Chapter 202. To Caden Dark. The tournament had ended, and the golden haze of magic still shimmered faintly across the Zenith Arena. Champions were tending to wounds, crowds slowly thinning out, and sky lanterns now began to rise above Crayon Soul, dancing into the twilight. Up in one of the noble stands, Vale strolled toward the box where Adam, Joshua, Alice, and Caden were seated. He had ditched the ceremonial robes, back in his usual grease-stained apron, a meat skewer half-eaten in his hand. That was some epic showdown, Vale said, voice rough with admiration. That move you pulled at the end? Just chef's kiss perfection. He turned to Caden, eyes narrowed slightly. So, who taught you that spin kick into soul burst sequence? Caden scratched the back of his neck and pointed at Adam. He's my father.
Vael Blingsked.
Then laughed. Well, I'll be damned. You have such a fine boy, Vale said, slapping Adam on the back hard enough to make the entire stand creak. Reminds me of my younger years. Millions of years ago, back when I was valiant and a force of nature. Zariel would vouch for me. Joshua leaned forward, smirking. Yeah, he was something, all right. A force of nature, mostly gas, occasionally useful. They burst into laughter, even Caden cracking a grin. Vale grumbled good-naturedly, waving a skewer at Joshua. Keep talking, Spark Boy. You'll be eating raw dragon meat next time. Only if it comes with your mystery sauce, Joshua shot back. Vale sighed with theatrical disappointment. He remembers the sauce.
I'm doomed.
The mood was light, the kind that only follows a win, and just when Vale was about to invite them all back to his restaurant for a celebratory meal, movement in the corridor below caught their attention. 3 figures approached the private box, each one a weight on the air. Duke Gorham, Lady Vereen, and the Celestial King himself.
Vaeles smile twitched.
Looks like dinner's gonna wait. Adam stood slowly, Joshua beside him. Alice and Caden followed suit, composed but curious. Duke Gorham reached them first, towering and broad, beard braided with fragments of dark steel. His eyes landed on Caden, unreadable. "Your match was impressive," he said flatly. "Too impressive for someone so young." Caden kept his stance even. "Thank you, sir." Gorham's eyes flicked to Adam, and for a beat, the air thickened. He gave a slow nod. "You raised a strong one." Adam said nothing. He simply returned the nod, calm and quiet. Lady Vereen stepped forward next. Tall and ethereal, silver threading across her black robes, her mask covering all but her lips. "You carry blood not of this realm," she said softly to Caden. "And yet you did not falter. That is rare." Caden blinked. "I appreciate that, Lady Vereen." She turned to Adam. "A celestial? Or something beyond it?" Adam didn't answer. She smiled faintly. "Secrets are fine. For now." And then the Celestial King stepped forward. The arena fell into silence again. His presence was gentle but vast. A sea of stars behind a human face. His voice, when he spoke, was both warm and eternal. "Caden Dark," he said, and even saying the name seemed to place it into history. "You fought with spirit, not only strength. You fought to protect, not to dominate. That is the mark of a true force." Caden bowed. The Celestial King glanced at Joshua. "Zariel, your return has brought echoes into motion." Joshua met his gaze evenly. "And I plan to answer them." The king looked at Adam last. A pause. A deeper recognition passed there. Then the king simply said, "Keep your son close. The winds coming are older than blood." With that, the three turned, walking back into the crowd of glowing banners and murmuring nobles. As soon as they were gone, Vale exhaled sharply. "So, still coming to the restaurant? Or do I need to call the gods of catering to deliver up here?" Joshua clapped Caden on the shoulder.
Smo.
"You earned the best meal of your life.
Adam Simirket.
And I'll make sure he doesn't eat like a warhorse." Alice looped her arm into Caden's. "Let's go before Vale changes his mind and makes us cook." They laughed again, the tension slowly melting as they stepped out of the box. Above, the arena's floating chains pulsed with soft light. And below, in the streets of Crayon Soul, the name Caden Dark had already begun to echo. But this was just the beginning. Minutes later, the soft glow of mana lanterns lit the wooden interior. The scent of roasted drake meat, fresh bread, and fireleaf wine hung thick in the air. Dozens of tables were arranged around a hearth-like cooking pit at the center, where low flames danced beneath a heavy iron grill. Vale tossed his apron over his shoulder and barked to his staff. "We're off menu tonight. I want 3 full spreads for the tournament crew. Caden gets the Godslayer platter. And someone bring out the good soul wine before I die of emotional constipation." They were seated in the large round booth near the back, right beside a window overlooking the mid-district canals. Joshua sat between Adam and Alice, while Caden sat across from them, clearly still riding the buzz from the match. "You all right?" Alice asked, nudging him gently. Caden looked around, eyes still wide. "I've never been praised like that before. The king, Lady Vereen, even Gorham." Adam raised an eyebrow. "You did fine. Even without your full powers, you fought like someone who understood what they were protecting. That's more important than power." Caden blinked, then nodded quietly, a smile twitching at the corners of his mouth. Soon, platter after platter arrived. Roasted wyvern ribs glazed in magma honey, ice drake dumplings, moonfruit salad with shimmering vine syrup, and a huge steaming pot of luminous soul rice. Caden stared at it like it was treasure. "You're feeding an army," Joshua said. "I'm feeding champions," Vale corrected, snapping his fingers as servers refilled their cups. "Don't insult my portions." Adam raised his cup. "To Caden Dark." They all raised theirs. Alice smiled. "And to not letting Vale name any dishes ever again." They clinked glasses, laughter filling the space. Chapter 203, Aurora's Plan. Crayon Soul, edge of the High District rooftops. The city glowed beneath them like a living tapestry. Lanterns drifting in the air, arcane pulses humming through the sky chains, distant laughter echoing from a festival still burning into the night. Adam stood alone at the edge of the rooftop, one hand in his coat pocket, the other loosely hanging at his side. The wind tousled his hair gently, and his silver eyes reflected the stars above. "Knew I'd find you here," came a calm voice behind him. He didn't turn. He didn't need to. "Aurora." She stepped up beside him, quiet as breath, her long coat fluttering at the hem. Her gaze followed his, scanning the horizon. "I can end the architect and the spiral," Adam said after a moment, voice low and even. "Snuff them out before they become more than annoyances. But it's not my war, Aurora. It's Joshua's." He paused, eyes narrowing. "I'm not one for politics. Or chess matches. That's more your thing. I'm the punch now, think later kind of guy. But even chaos gets boring after a while. Watching them move pieces, hiding behind faces, pretending to be clever." He sighed, then smirked faintly. "If I listened to Jordan and Kaeldar, I would have wiped them out before the sun rose." Aurora tilted her head slightly, her face unreadable as always. But her voice was soft. "You saw the spiral's hand today."
Adam nodded.
"Lyrics. The pale choir. That little display was him flexing, showing off his reach. He thinks he's clever." She watched the stars for a while before speaking again. "What if I made it your business?" That got his attention. He turned just slightly, one brow raised. "What if," she continued, still looking ahead, "I let the spiral take me, stage a kidnapping, force your hand? We both know you've started growing attached."
Adam chuckled.
"Dangerous game, Aurora." "So is sitting on your hands while the world falls apart," she replied simply. He looked at her, this time fully, eyes sharp. "Having feelings and acting on them are two very different things." "Then act," she said without missing a beat. He laughed, quiet and short. "Rare. If it were up to the me standing here, we'd both stay single and married to war. No drama.
No emotions.
Clean and simple." Aurora actually smiled. Not a smirk, not a knowing curl of the lip, but an actual quiet smile. "Is that the great Aurora? Laughing?" Adam said, eyes widening slightly, teasing in his tone. "Don't ruin it," she replied. Another silence settled, not awkward, just familiar. Adam leaned on the railing. "So, you planning to go through with your idea? Let the spiral bait me out?" Aurora shrugged slightly. "I'm not afraid of being bait. I'm afraid of letting them control the board too long." "That's your chess mind talking again. And your fists would land too late if we wait until Joshua bleeds." Adam glanced up at the sky again, then at her. "You're serious, huh?" "Always." He exhaled deeply. "Then if it happens, if you disappear, know this." His tone shifted, slower, heavier. "I will bring down the sky to get you back. Spiral or architect or whoever else tries me. I'll burn their names out of existence." Aurora didn't flinch. She met his gaze calmly. "That's what I'm counting on."
Adam blinked.
"You manipulative woman. Only with people I trust." He gave her a crooked smile. "You sure you're not in love with me already? That would be inefficient." Adam burst into laughter again. Real this time. There it is. Back to spreadsheets and swordplay. She didn't laugh this time, but her smile lingered. "Sleep while you can," she said. "The spiral doesn't wait long." "Neither do I." And together, under the stars of Crayon Soul, they stood, two quiet storms waiting to move. The wind rolled softly across the rooftop, rustling the banners draped over the distant towers. Crayon Soul glimmered below them, golden and alive. From this height, the city looked like a breathing constellation. Aurora leaned against the stone rail, arms folded, eyes distant. Her voice came low, just above the whisper of the wind. "I saw it." Adam looked at her. "What?" "The architect of ruin, and the spiral, together, talking, in the void." Her fingers tapped once against her arm. "Not as friends, but as forces aligned. For now." Adam's expression tightened. That's a pairing no one asked for. They don't know I saw it. They don't even know I exist. She turned to him slowly. I'm not on their board, Adam. Not in their plans. I'm invisible to both. Adam gave a small nod. Which makes you dangerous. Exactly. Aurora stepped closer, her tone calm, sharp. The architect wants Zariel Joshua, for whatever reasons a being like that collects names. The spiral wants to break him, rewrite his legacy, and twist the city into a hymn of despair. She paused. Her next words carried weight. But neither of them knows me, and that gives me the edge.
Adam frowned.
What did you see, exactly? Aurora exhaled slowly, like pulling the memory from the corners of her mind. A rift, big, wide, the architect shaping it with his hands like clay, and the spiral feeding it timelines. Memories that didn't happen. Futures that were never supposed to be. She looked at him. It's not just war they're preparing for. It's removal, erasure, not death, not domination, but unmaking. Adam's jaw tightened. They want to rewrite this place from the root. Not just this place. Aurora tapped her temple. They want to erase meaning, to take everything that makes Joshua who he is and twist it until even he doesn't remember what he's fighting for. Adam stepped back, running a hand through his hair. And your plan is to let yourself get pulled into that? Yes. She said it like she was announcing the weather. Aurora, I'm the one thing they don't see coming. If I can let them think they've taken me, I can learn where they're hiding, what they're building, and plant the counterstrike from inside. Adam was quiet. Then slowly, you know that's reckless, right? I know it's necessary. You're not invincible. Neither are they. The silence between them stretched, tight and full of tension. Then Adam stepped forward. If they touch you, they won't. If they try, then they'll learn.
Adam siket.
You're serious about this? Always. He looked at her for a long time, then finally nodded. Then if you're playing shadow games, I'll be your sword when it breaks down. Aurora gave the faintest nod. That's what I'm counting on. They stood like that for a while, watching the stars blink over the skyline. The city below unaware, the war above unseen. But the game had begun. Chapter 204, Aurora Missing. Crayon Soul, 2 days later. Rain whispered through the streets of the lower districts, soft and steady. The lanterns that once flickered with warmth now trembled in the mist, their glow swallowed in a curtain of gray. The air was heavy. Something had changed. Something unseen. Aurora had vanished. No one saw her leave. No one saw where she went. Not even Adam. But this was her plan. In the silent depths of the arcane sewers beneath the abandoned eastern gate, Aurora stood at the mouth of the rift. It was small, unstable, flickering in and out of view. But it was real. And worse, it was breathing. It pulsed like a heartbeat, the spiral's signature etched in its edge like a mocking grin. Echoes whispered through the currents of magic, broken memories repeating in foreign tongues. This was a blind spot, a test site, something between a door and a mouth. Perfect. Aurora stepped forward. One last look behind her. No shadow followed. No sound. Begin the game, she whispered. She crossed the threshold. The rift swallowed her. Void space between realms. The moment she entered, her senses bent. Light inverted. Time stuttered. Colors bled through her skin and back into the air. But she was calm, steady, wrapped in layers of shielding spells and soul disguises that made even the void hesitate to touch her. Her presence was a flicker in an ocean of black flame. Untraceable, undetected. For now, she drifted, until she felt it. A pulse. The architect's signature. Massive, cold, like ancient metal and forgotten prayers. She changed direction. Then, a voice. Low, cold.
Familiar.
Another worm trying to crawl into the nest? It wasn't Spiral. This voice was clearer, sharper, more defined. The architect. Aurora floated still, silent, letting the currents drag her closer. I see it now, a fragment, no. Another voice, spiraling, hissing through echoes. An anomaly. Something not written. The spiral. She was close. Close enough to listen. The architect stood before the forming gate. Beside him, the spiral drifted like a wound-given voice, his presence twisting the surrounding void into coiled glyphs and burning loops. You said Zariel would chase rage, the architect growled. But instead he preaches peace. He will chase rage, the spiral whispered. But not yet. First, we break the pieces around him. The architect tilted his head. And the anomaly?
Adam.
Yes. The spiral spat the name like it tasted wrong. An unbound. An element we never calculated. But even anomalies bleed. Then make him bleed. The spiral coiled tighter. Not yet. Not now. We take the blade from Zariel's hand. One by one. Until he must strike alone. Aurora's eyes narrowed. So that was the plan. Break the bonds. Break the people. Force Joshua to stand alone. Classic Spiral. Let me choose the next piece, Spiral said. Let me take the girl. The hunter. Alice. The architect paused. Then nodded. Do it. Aurora's heart stilled. It was time to move. She vanished from the void seconds later, leaving no trace.
No hecho. No ripple.
Back in the crayon soul, a shimmer sparked in the corner of a quarter, a flicker of reality parting just wide enough for her to emerge. She landed lightly on the rooftop, her cloak trailing behind her like shadows made of silence. Her eyes blazed. Now she knew. They were coming for Alice. They were going to isolate Joshua. And she would be the piece that stopped the spiral's board. She pressed her hand to her ear. A calm crystal flared in blue light. Adam, she said, I'm back. A pause. Then his voice. Took your time. They want Alice. They're going after her next. And they're not just watching anymore. They're acting. Did they see you?
No.
Not yet. But I want them to. You're baiting them? Exactly. Another pause. Then a chuckle. Welcome back, Aurora. She smiled faintly, her eyes glowing faint in the darkness. Let the spiral know. The ghost on the board just made her first move. And the stars above Crayon Soul burned just a little brighter. Days passed. The city hummed quietly beneath the veil of night. Crayon Soul slept, unaware that its quietest protector was preparing to disappear. Aurora stood at the edge of the overlook, high above the sleeping rooftops. Her breath was steady, eyes locked onto the stars. She had always liked the stars. They were constants, unlike people, unlike fate. She turned her collar up against the cold breeze and stepped back from the ledge. Her mind replayed everything she'd seen in her vision. The architect of ruin and the spiral standing side by side in the void, both ancient, both dangerous, and now working together if only temporarily. They didn't know her. That was her advantage. She moved through the silent streets like a ghost, slipping through alleys and over rooftops until she reached the forgotten end of the city, where the ruins still held echoes of older times, where the boundaries between worlds were thinner. Aurora crouched in the center of a broken shrine. The runes were long faded, but the energy was still there, just dormant. She pressed her hand to the cracked floor, channeling just enough magic to create a pulse. Not a signal, a beacon. It wouldn't be long now. Sure enough, the air around her shifted. A slow rippling hum, like a drumbeat behind reality. The spiral's energy was different than the architect's. More erratic, like 1,000 voices whispering all at once. It coiled through the air and took shape in front of her, warping the night around it. It didn't speak. It didn't need to. Aurora let herself go still. Then the pull came. Her body jerked forward slightly, as if gravity had changed direction. Her vision blurred. Cold washed over her limbs like water rushing in reverse. She didn't resist. The spiral thought it had found prey. Thought wrong. She woke somewhere else. Not a place. Concept. The spiral's domain wasn't a realm. It was memory, regret, twisting space into thought, thought into prisons. And yet Aurora stood, She looked around. Everything shifted like reflections on oil. Voices whispered. Some were hers. Some were Zariel's. Some weren't anyone's at all. Ah, who are you? The spiral's voice came from nowhere and everywhere. Aurora smiled. Just slightly. I'm the last person you should have brought here. The spiral coiled around her. Curious. You're not marked. You're not drawn. You're not even supposed to be seen. And yet, here I am. Why? To see you. To see this. And to tear it down from the inside. A silence stretched through the shifting dark. Then laughter. Slow, amused, layered with madness. You think you can win in my world? I don't need to win, she said calmly. I just need to get close. Asterius. Alfred leaned back against a wooden beam, his boots on the table. Arya was across from him, throwing peanuts at Jordan every time he tried to sneak another drink. Draken sat with his arms crossed, sipping slowly, while Varian argued with Kael'thar, who, for once, appeared in his human form, white hair tied back. His usual Voidwalker presence dimmed to something tolerable. Alexandria sat near the fire, scribbling notes into a leather-bound journal with one hand, a glass of something sharp in the other. So let me get this straight, Jordan said, dodging a peanut. You once suplexed a mountain spirit during a lunar eclipse and didn't write a song about it? It wasn't that impressive, Arya shrugged. You cracked a crater in the valley, Varian muttered. With her shoulder, Draken added. You people need hobbies, Kael'thar sighed. Laughter followed. Light. Easy. For once, the tension of Crayon Soul had lifted, until the door slammed open. Everyone turned at once, hands already moving subtly to weapons, spells, instincts. Caden stood in the doorway, soaked from the rain, breath sharp in his chest. His cloak clung to him, mud trailing in from his boots. His eyes locked onto Joshua's empty chair. Where is he? Alfred stood up slowly. Caden? What? My mother, Caden said. She's gone. The room fell dead quiet. Arya sat forward, peanut forgotten. What do you mean, gone? Caden took a step in. His fists were shaking. She left 2 nights ago. Said she was just checking something near the ruins. I waited. I tracked. I checked everything. She's not in the city anymore. She's not anywhere. Draken stood. Did you feel a breach? A distortion? Caden nodded. In the eastern gate. But it's gone now. Like it's sealed behind her. I went to Dad first. He's already looking. But he told me to come here. She wouldn't vanish without a reason, Alexandria said. That's what I'm afraid of, Caden said, voice tightening. Kael'thar stood now too, the casual veil peeling from his posture. The hall felt colder suddenly. The spiral? He asked quietly. Or the architect? Varian muttered. She knew something, Caden said. She saw something. She didn't tell me. Alfred looked around at the others. The fire behind them popped and hissed, unnoticed. Chapter 205, Time to Stop Thinking. Of course. Here's the rewritten and continued version in the anime-style tone you like. Grounded, cinematic, and simple without overly dramatic grammar. This expands on Adam's response to Aurora's disappearance and introduces the power structure of the Origin Realm. Crayon Soul, the old tower's edge. The wind whispered through the jagged spires of the broken tower, brushing past the lone figure who sat at its ledge.
Adam.
His coat fluttered gently, silver hair catching the moonlight. Below him, Crayon Soul moved as it always did. Alive, loud, and oblivious. Then he heard it. The soft whisper of a calm rune lighting up beside him. A message. One word. Missing. He didn't need more. He already knew who. He closed his eyes, breathed out, then sighed. Of course. He stood. Not with urgency, not with panic, but like a storm that had been waiting long enough. He cracked his neck to the side. A low pop echoed in the air. Then the other. A grin spread across his face. Why, hungry. I guess that's my cue. No more pretending. No more diplomacy. They had taken her. Now it was his turn.
No build-up.
No plan. This time he was ending it. In one move, one strike, one tap. Power system of the Origin realm. Adam's thoughts drifted as the wind pushed against him. He'd spent days mapping this world's structure. The Origin realm had order even in its chaos. A hierarchy, a food chain, power layered like old ruins stacked on top of each other. At the bottom were the steel-born warriors with forged cores and martial bodies. Strength of will and weapon. The basics. Above them, the arcane binders, wielders of elemental and spatial magic, grounded in laws and formulas. Then came the blessed, touched by outer forces, spirit beasts, celestial lineage, forgotten gods. Above the blessed stood the monarchs, rulers, not just of nations but of domains. Time, gravity, space, emotion, dream. They didn't just fight with power. They fought with concepts. And above the monarchs, those few who could tear the rules apart and write their own. True gods. Not a title. A race. Extinct to most. Faded from record. Only a handful remained. Some asleep. Some lost. Some simply vanished. Joshua's real father had been one. A true god. A being who walked outside the idea of mortality. His disappearance shattered balance. And left scars in the sky. Opposing them, of course. The devils. Not fallen. Not corrupted. Just born from the wrong side of creation. Where true gods stood for stability, legacy, and design. The devils thrived on disorder, rebirth, and raw evolution. Two sides of a coin that shouldn't have been flipped. Adam stepped off the ledge of the tower. And didn't fall. He walked into the sky. Each step crackling with quiet light. Footprints left behind for only a second before fading. I know where you are, Spiral. He looked forward, eyes glowing now, not with rage, but with purpose. And Architect, you shouldn't have touched her. He drew in a breath, and the air around him shimmered like glass under pressure. Then he smiled again. Let's finish this farce. Far beyond in the rift, somewhere deep in the layered folds of the void, the Spiral paused. As many voices faltered. He's moving. The Architect turned his head slightly.
Adam?
The Spiral curled tighter.
No.
That thing. That anomaly. Good, the Architect murmured. Let him come. No, the Spiral hissed. You don't understand. And for the first time in eons, there was something behind its voice. Not madness. Not control. But fear. Back in Crayon Soul, the skies stirred. The wind shifted. Something unseen stepped into motion. And as Adam vanished from the city's horizon, one thought echoed from every place that knew power. A true predator is finally hunting. Asterius. The candlelight flickered across the old marble walls, casting long, tired shadows over maps, scrolls, and half-drawn sigils. Joshua paced the floor. Again. Back and forth, boots thudding softly on the stone. His coat dragging behind him like a storm he couldn't shake. Alice stood by the doorway, arms crossed, watching him. After a while, she walked closer. Joshua, she said gently, what are you thinking about? He didn't stop pacing, just let out a breath through his nose. I don't know, he muttered. I'm trying to figure out the next move, but nothing feels right. And Adam, he paused, jaw clenched. He's nowhere. Alice nodded, stepping closer, her voice calm and clear. That's because he's already decided. Joshua turned, confused. What do you mean? She looked him in the eye. The mother of his child is missing. What did you expect him to do? Wait for permission? Make a plan? He's not like you. Joshua looked away. Alice softened. He's moving because he can't sit still. That's how he shows he cares. And maybe you need to do the same. Joshua didn't say anything. Then, after a moment, she added, I can take you to him if you want. He hesitated, looked at her, then shook his head. No, he said quietly. You're safer here. I don't want you near what's coming. Alice frowned, but didn't argue. She knew him too well. Joshua turned, walking again. Only this time the world shifted. The corridor blurred around him. The war room fell away, and when he stepped forward, he was somewhere else. Ethereal cliff, between Crayon Soul and the rift. The clouds rolled beneath his feet like smoke. Above, the stars blinked behind thin layers of stormlight, and standing at the edge of the floating cliff, coat swaying in the void breeze, was Adam, arms folded, eyes fixed on the horizon like he could already see the spiral's teeth coming through. He didn't turn, just smiled slightly as Joshua stepped up beside him. "Took you long enough," Joshua exhaled. "Could say the same." Adam glanced at him. "Let me guess. You were pacing." Joshua didn't answer. Adam chuckled under his breath. "Still trying to outthink them, huh?" Joshua looked down at the endless sky beneath them. "Thinking is all I've got." Adam raised a brow. "No, it's not." Silence hung between them, heavy, but not empty. Joshua finally asked, "You're going for her?" Adam's grin faded. "Of course." "And the spiral?" Adam's silver eyes narrowed, glowing faint. "I'm going through him." A beat passed. Then Joshua asked, "Need backup?" Adam tilted his head, the ghost of a smirk returning. "Are you asking as Zariel, the former ruler of Crayon Soul? Or as the guy who can't stop pacing around his girlfriend?" Joshua chuckled. "Just once." "Both." Adam clapped a hand on his shoulder. "Then let's bring her home." And the wind howled around them as the two figures stood side by side, the stars above witnessing the quiet beginning of the end. Chapter 206. A Fight to Behold. The realm had no sky, no ground, just a vast abyss of still-burning stars that bled backwards into themselves, looping like broken clocks caught in an endless gasp. Time here wasn't still. It was unsettled. It shivered. The spiral stood at the edge of it all, an aura of madness bleeding into the fabric of the void. Not with rage this time, but anticipation. Its form fluctuated in rhythm with the whispers in the dark, as if it were listening to a choir that hadn't started singing yet. Beside it, the architect of ruin, tall, still, dressed in black robes that clung to his body like morning silk. His face was concealed behind a cracked porcelain mask, and his arms were folded calmly behind him, as if standing at a funeral he had hosted. And floating between them, suspended in a sphere of folded starlight and shadow, was Aurora. Her body was locked in place, not unconscious, aware, watching, breathing, but frozen. Her eyes burned with quiet fury, even through the shimmering barrier that held her like a statue of resistance. "She doesn't scream," the spiral mused. "Most of them do." The architect didn't look at her. His eyes remained on the rift ahead, a crackling wound of gold and black, pulsing with raw potential. "She's not most," he replied simply. A long silence stretched. Then the architect spoke again, voice distant. "You know, there was a time when Zariel and I walked together. Before this, before the titles, before the wars. He wasn't always the saint they paint him as." The spiral twisted slightly, curious. "You speak as though he was your brother." "He was something close," the architect said. "We were forged in the same collapse, same flames, but he chose light. Il chose trousse." He turned to face Aurora now. "And the truth is, ideals fade. Power remains." The spiral chuckled. "Is that why you betrayed him?" The architect shook his head.
No.
"I betrayed the lie he became." More silence. "He will come," the spiral said, almost giddy. "Yes. And so will the other one." The architect's voice darkened.
Adam.
Even he said the name like it was unfamiliar, like it didn't belong. "He's not from here," he added. "Not from anywhere. A construct of chaos wearing human skin." The spiral tilted its head, twisting through the air slowly. "Can we kill him?" The architect didn't answer immediately. "We can try." The rift before them pulsed again. Larger now, wider. Something stirred within it. The air tightened. The spiral turned toward the sphere. "Maybe we should break her first. Leave a trail of pieces. Let them pick up what's left." Aurora's eyes flared with light. Cracks hissed across the barrier. Faint. Fleeting. The architect raised a brow. Careful. The spiral pulled back. Amused. She's holding more than she shows. The architect looked at the rift again. They're almost here. I can feel it. The weight of intention. Zariel carries it like a blade. Adam carries it like a bomb. The spiral leaned close to him. And when they arrive, we finish this. Elsewhere, at the edge of the rift, Adam stood still, cloak fluttering. Beside him, Joshua, Zariel, silent and sharp-eyed. Before them, the open mouth of the void.
Adam ehalet slowly.
She's inside. Joshua nodded. Yeah, I feel her. Ready to end this? Joshua pulled the blade from his back. Not forged, but summoned from memory and will. Let's go bring her home. Together, they stepped into the rift. And the void cracked like thunder. Back to Aurora. The spiral and the architect were busy talking about what to do when Aurora's voice rang out. Aurora's eyes narrowed slightly. You speak like you've already won. The architect turned his head toward her. You are here, aren't you? Aurora shifted just a little. Just enough. You didn't bring me here, she said. I let you think you did. The spiral hissed in amusement. Pride is delicious. No, she replied calmly. Precision is. The orb pulsed slightly just once. A ripple of her own mana pressed back against its woven layers. Not to escape, but to measure. The architect stepped back, unimpressed. Your resistance is expected, but irrelevant. The boy Caden will spiral when he learns you are gone. Alice will falter. And Joshua, he looked at the edge of the platform, where space trembled. He will come. A pause. Then Aurora smiled. That's the point. And in that instant, it began. The sphere cracked. The spiral recoiled. Dozens of voices overlapping.
No.
Another fracture. A second. The third. Aurora didn't move. She didn't shout. She simply exhaled. 3 layers. 1 breath. A white flash of compressed energy exploded outward from her chest. A shockwave that wasn't fire or light but intent. Raw, weaponized will. The orb shattered. Glass-like shards of binding spells scattered across the platform, dissolving mid-air. Aurora landed softly, knees bent, eyes glowing faintly. The spiral writhed.
Impossible.
You built this prison for someone afraid, she said. You forgot who I was. The architect took a step forward, but Aurora had already moved. She was behind the spiral before it turned. Her blade, formed from concentrated light and silence, pierced straight through its flickering core. You forgot the ghost, she whispered. The spiral screamed, not in pain, but in offense. Reality convulsed. The realm around them cracked like shattered glass. Distorted fragments of other timelines blinked in and out of view. Places where Joshua never returned, where Adam never awoke, where Crayon's soul burned under black suns. The architect raised his hand. Enough! A shockwave erupted from him, splitting the platform and flinging Aurora back. She landed hard, but caught herself mid-slide, one hand dragging across the ground to stop. He stared at her, but his voice was no longer patient. I should have ended you the moment you arrived. Aurora stood again. I should have let you think you could. The spiral reformed barely. The shape was looser now, less defined, but it remained hovering behind the architect, silent. Aurora tapped her ear crystal. They know. The architect's eyes flickered. Who? And then, boom! A crack split open the edge of the realm. Through it, 2 figures. Adam stepping through like a god dragging war behind him. And Joshua, quiet-eyed, glowing with steady fire. Aurora stepped back, standing between them. The trio now faced the spiral and the architect like the past, present, and future had finally stood together again. Adam glanced at her, his voice low. Told you not to get kidnapped. Aurora smiled. Told you I'd break out. Joshua exhaled. Is this it? Aurora nodded. The start of it. The spiral backed away, twitching. The architect's voice was cold. So be it. And space itself shattered. The true war began. Chapter 207, Joshua versus the Architect. The Rift Realm, reforged ground of memory. The air screamed as the Architect raised his hand. With a flick of his fingers, reality inverted. The stars blinked out, replaced by ash. The void twisted, folding itself inward like a wound closing, and Joshua was gone in a blink of lightless flame. Adam took a step forward, eyes flaring, but Aurora held him back. He's not dead, she said, eyes narrowed. He's been pulled. To where? She looked at the space that now held only smoke. To the place they died once before. Recreation of a dead battlefield. Within the Architect's domain. The ground was black. Not burnt, erased. Flat and endless. With pillars of shattered time suspended in the air like broken monuments. A sky of grinding gears hovered above, casting no light, only motion. Thunder cracked sideways. Joshua stood in the center of it, cloak whipping in unnatural wind. His blade was still drawn, wreathed now in fire that hissed and whispered like it had memory. The Architect stood at the far edge, calm, composed. His robes fluttered. His mask glinted with cracks older than cities. This place, Joshua muttered. You made this look exactly like it. The Architect nodded once. Because it is it. Joshua's eyes flared. You think remaking the battlefield gives you power over what happened? The Architect began to walk forward, each step echoing like metal slamming on bone. Not power, clarity. This was where I watched you fall the first time. I wanted to feel that moment again. Joshua's fingers tightened around his blade. Then feel this. He moved. No sound, no build-up. Just motion, perfect and violent. He blurred forward in a streak of golden fire, swinging once, a horizontal slash meant to split anything in front of him. The Architect caught it. Not the blade, the motion. A single hand, palm open, stopped the energy of the attack midair. The flame crackled like a nervous animal caught in a snare, struggling to move, but frozen in time. The Architect didn't move his feet. I've adapted, he said simply. Joshua gritted his teeth and unleashed a second strike without pulling back. His foot twisted, energy condensed into his leg, and he kicked upward, launching himself into a spinning backflip, bringing the sword down in an overhead arc with the full weight of his body and the divine blood in his veins. Clang, whum. The ground shattered beneath them in a 40-meter radius, launching plates of black stone skyward. The shockwave bent the air. The Architect stepped to the left, barely, and the blade missed his shoulder by inches. But Joshua was already in his face. A punch, cloaked in hellfire, slammed into the Architect's chest. Porcelain cracked. The Architect staggered back. Not in pain, but in calculation. He looked down. A devil's touch. You've been busy. Joshua's blade spun in his hand. You have no idea. This time he charged again, but now with two trails behind him, one of white-blue godlight, the other of deep-red chaos flame. He vanished, then appeared behind the Architect, slashing upward. Clang. Again caught. But this time the Architect winced. The mask chipped further. Joshua leaned in close. You're slower than I remember. The Architect exploded. Not metaphorically. A wave of disintegration force burst from his body. A full 360-degree blast that erased everything it touched: air, memory, matter. Joshua was launched, flying backward across the field, crashing through 3 floating monoliths. Bam, crack, crunch. He rolled across the broken earth, landing hard on one knee. The Architect walked forward again. His voice didn't rise, but it grew. I am not slower, he said. You're simply closer to what you were meant to be. Joshua spat blood, wiping his mouth with the back of his glove. You still talk like a eulogy. Because I bury things, the Architect answered, and he vanished. Crack. He appeared behind Joshua, and this time it was his strike. A single palm to the spine. Joshua arched, eyes wide, as an invisible spike of pure ruin surged through his body. trying to unravel his organs, his mind, his past. His feet lifted off the ground. But he turned in midair, dragging his blade with him in a wide spiral, catching the architect across the mask with a flash of fire and silver. SHHHHK. The mask split in half. The architect did not flinch. The two pieces fell away from his face, revealing a visage made of shifting void.
No skin. No bone.
Just a storm of stars shaped into a man. Joshua landed, breathing hard. You're not even flesh anymore. I haven't been for eons, the architect replied, voice now echoing with multiple layers. I chose to become something more, something stable. You still bleed. Joshua took a step forward, fire swirling around him. Yeah, but I can still love. And that's your mistake. The architect snarled for the first time. Love is entropy. And he raised both hands. The sky split. From the broken ceiling above, thousands of spears rained down, each made of compressed ruin, like crystallized gravity mixed with memory. They fell like a meteor storm. Joshua's eyes flared. He leapt upward, slicing the first wave to ribbons midair. He spun, dipped, and curved between the spears, cutting a path through falling death like a dancer of flame. His blade sang. Shink. Crack. He moved faster, the divine and devil blood inside him sinking. His skin shimmered with light now. Each movement left afterimages that folded backward, like time forgetting what just happened. He landed on a spear, pushed off, and dove straight for the architect, sword first. The architect crossed his arms, then opened a rift in front of him. Joshua vanished into it. A heartbeat passed. Then, boom. He exploded out the other side, bursting from the architect's shadow, blade aimed for the neck. The architect barely dodged. Slash. But not fully. The blade grazed across his shoulder. Black light sprayed like liquid physics itself had been wounded. Joshua landed, crouched, panting. The architect straightened, shoulder flickering. That was new. Joshua rose. That was me. The architect raised one arm, and the world around them collapsed inward. Time looped, then broke. The entire battlefield reformed into a spiraling ruin tower rising from nothing, its core made of the bones of forgotten gods. Then let me show you me. Wham! His form expanded. No longer a man, he became a storm-given posture. A titanic figure of shadowed ruin, stretching above the tower like a second sky. Joshua looked up. He didn't falter. He lifted his blade, spoke a word in a language older than angels. The sword responded, growing longer, sharper, turning translucent. I killed you once, he said. He launched himself upward, through gravity itself, breaking lines of force as he rose toward the god behemoth. The architect swung a hand the size of a cathedral, came down like judgment. Joshua cut through it. Blam! The hand burst into spirals of color and reverse screams. He reached the head and slammed the blade straight between the architect's eyes.
A silent explosion.
Everything went white. Chapter 208. Adam versus the spiral. The spiral hovered above the fractured platform, its form twitching like a strobe of broken thoughts. Limbs that weren't always there. A head that spun backward. Eyes that blinked sideways. Voices layered inside its voice. Adam, the spiral sang, tilting at an unnatural angle. Chaos born. Not a god. Not a man. Just noise, given lungs. Adam said nothing. He stepped forward. The spiral pulsed, reality around it bent. Stone twisted into bone. The stars above reformed into paper, unraveling into scripts that fluttered down like ash. The realm read itself as it changed. Sentences floated in the air.
Adam faltered.
The spiral won. Aurora screamed. See! The spiral laughed, spinning in midair. I rewrite the outcome. This is my domain. I am the breath of the author, the ink of the end. Adam rolled his shoulders, then shut the book, and moved. He blurred, no, not moved, replaced himself. from one side of the platform to the spiral's blind spot in a single blink. His fist, wrapped in thin crackles of black flame and silver light, collided with the spiral's midsection. Boom! The spiral's entire body bent inward, twisted like a ragdoll of bad animation, flung backward through multiple layers of space. It tore through the realm, bouncing off invisible barriers. The spiral righted itself mid-spin, leaking symbols from the tear in its form. It snarled. You can't punch your way out of narrative, Adam. You are a character. I am the page. Reality folded again.
Adam hesitated.
His skin split. The spiral grinned. The words etched themselves across Adam's arms. Runes trying to manifest harm. Trying to force his reality into fiction. Adam stared at them. They glowed, then dimmed. He breathed. The text burned away. He stepped forward again. The spiral screeched. You are not supposed to ignore me. With a snap of its fingers, the spiral tore open a curtain in the air. Behind it, another world. A timeline where Adam never existed. The spiral shoved it forward like a flood, trying to overwrite this realm with that one. The sky flipped. Aurora stumbled back as entire histories screamed into the scene. Adam didn't flinch. He punched through the timeline like glass. The spiral reeled back, voice fractured. You don't bend. Everything bends. Everyone breaks. You're just a concept. A disruption.
Adam yalked.
Not ran. Walked. Each step unraveled the spiral's illusions. The script in the sky peeled away like paint. Time stopped folding. You're not a god, the spiral whispered. You're anti-pattern. Adam stopped 5 feet away. His eyes glowed not with light, but with pressure. Wait. He lifted a single finger and pointed at the spiral's heart. The spiral screamed.
No.
You don't get to define. The realm spiked. The spiral reached into itself and pulled out a quill, a feather made of screams and static. With it, it stabbed the air, writing new law, live. Adam turned into glass. His thoughts split apart. He became silence. The effects tried to take hold. The atmosphere trembled. Adam's outline flickered. But then his mouth opened, and he spoke. Not in language. Not in tone. Vocifery. Reality didn't hear him. It obeyed. One word. Return. The realm snapped back. Everything the spiral wrote was ripped away. Erased. His timeline collapsed inward on itself. Words flew upward, torn from the air like feathers caught in a storm. The spiral backed away, shaking. You're using your own narrative. That's wrong. That's cheating. Adam whispered another word. Mute. The spiral's voice cut off. Instantly, like someone hit a cosmic mute button. Screamed, but no sound came. Not even air. The fabric of communication was gone. Adam stepped forward again. The spiral threw everything now. Worlds. Fragments of gods. Paradoxes wrapped in flames. It opened doors to non-existence and hurled them like spears. Adam waved a hand. Scatter. They disintegrated midair, like dust denied meaning. The spiral stumbled, breathing heavily. You can't be this. You shouldn't be this. You're a contradiction. You don't come from story. You come from breakage. Adam looked up. Exactly. He raised both hands now, palms open. Around him the void spoke, not in words but tone, like a choir inhaling. The platform beneath his feet restructured into a circle. Not summoning, authoring. Adam's eyes burned white. He said, erase. The spiral tried to scream, but reality obeyed the new rule. The spiral's arms vanished first. Not torn off, just forgotten, like they were never written. His body followed, piece by piece. Not a violent destruction, a removal from narrative. No, the spiral mouthed.
No.
I was a voice. I was voice. Adam took one last step forward and crouched slightly, eyes narrowing. You were a shadow, in someone else's scene. The spiral lunged, its last desperate motion. A flicker of everything it was. Pages, screams, memory. all of it thrown into one final spear. Adam caught it, snapped it, and said, "Stop." The spiral shattered, not into pieces, but into silence. The sky stilled. The madness faded. All that remained was static drifting like dust. Silence. Adam exhaled, brushing his hands together like he'd just finished folding a map. Aurora stepped forward from behind the broken remains of a reality wall. "You done?" Adam looked back at her. "Yeah, he talked too much." Aurora raised an eyebrow. "And you don't?" "I right." Adam grinned slightly. From far off, the battlefield where Joshua fought the architect lit up in an eruption of force. Aurora looked that way, serious again. "It's still happening." Adam nodded, his eyes sharpening. "Then let's end it." Together, they walked toward the other war. Behind them, nothing remained of the spiral. Not a scream, not a soul. Just space, finally quiet. To Joshua. Joshua stood there, flame curling off his shoulders, blade still humming with heat. He glanced sideways, sensing the shift in the realm. "Looks like Adam handled the spiral," he said, smirking. "Guy doesn't waste time. Guess I need to step it up." Across from him, the architect staggered, black ichor dripping from the crack in his porcelain mask. Joshua's blade was still buried in the side of his head, glowing faintly. The architect's eyes locked on him, burning with rage. "Zariel," he growled, voice sharp and echoing. "You're going to pay for that." And then his body twisted, not just growing, solidifying. The ruined robes pulled tight around muscle that hadn't been there. His form expanded, bone grinding over bone, skin hardening like obsidian. He towered now, massive, monstrous. The cracked mask split fully, revealing a jagged face made of ruin and starfire. The air warped around him. Joshua cracked his neck, watching it happen. "Good," he muttered. "Was hoping you'd stop holding back." Chapter 209. Let's finish it. The ground shook. The architect finished changing, no longer the still, robed specter who spoke in riddles. He was now flesh and terror, a titanic being of obsidian muscle veined with burning fault lines. His skin cracked and steamed like a volcano dressed as a man. His jaw split open down the middle, glowing with cosmic fire. Horns curled back from his head like twisted blades, and his eyes, no longer hidden behind porcelain, were pits of gravitational hate. Joshua didn't move. He stood there with one hand on his blade, fire lacing the edges of his silhouette, a quiet storm waiting to scream. The architect raised a hand the size of a throne and clenched his fingers once. Boom! The entire battlefield cracked downward, the floor breaking into spiraling steps of ruin and obsidian. Lava-like light surged through them. The sky above blinked red, not with blood but memory. It showed images. Past battles, broken gods, dying worlds. All of them destroyed by the thing now facing Joshua. "I ended pantheons," the architect growled, his voice deeper now, layered with echo. "You were a prince once. Now you're just a name on a gravestone I forgot to bury." Joshua slowly drew his blade from the architect's skull. It hissed, steaming with molten ichor. "You talk a lot for someone who's about to lose teeth," the architect charged. Crack! He moved like an avalanche, all power, all weight. His fist slammed down at impossible speed. Joshua barely sidestepped, the shockwave turning air into knives. Before the energy faded, the architect swung again, his arm blurring with ruin energy, a backhand designed to rip timelines apart. Joshua ducked and slashed upward. His blade kissed the architect's ribs, sending a line of golden fire slicing clean through his side. The architect grunted, stepping back. Joshua launched forward, not giving space. One slash high. The architect blocked it with his forearm, the blade biting halfway through. Second slash low. It sliced through the architect's leg, ichor spraying. Third spinning diagonal overhead. The architect caught it with both hands, and headbutt Joshua like a meteor. Boom! Joshua flew back, his body skipping off the ground in a trail of sparks before he flipped midair, landed, and slid, sword dragging behind him. His nose bled. He wiped it with the back of his hand. "All right," he muttered. "You got one." The architect raised both arms. From above, the sky peeled open, not like clouds parting, like reality being unzipped. From within poured black tendrils of reversed light, memories of gods who never existed, limbs of deities erased by time, fragments of divine guilt given shape. They rained down. Joshua spun his blade once, and then drove it into the ground. Boom! A pulse of fire and will exploded outward in a perfect dome. The tendrils hit it, burned away, screaming in 100 dead languages. The architect stepped into the fire, parted around him, refusing to touch him. "Still hiding behind technique," he spat. "Still leaning on borrowed power." Joshua lifted his blade again. "Nah," he said. "I own this now." He raised his left hand, fingers curled, and then snapped. The entire platform shook. Chains burst upward from the ground, fiery, jagged, roaring with divine seals. They latched onto the architect's arms, legs, neck, pulled taut. The architect roared, straining against them. "You're using hellfire and light," he snarled. "Contradiction." Joshua was already moving. He blitzed forward, his body now a blur of golden-red flame. The moment he reached the architect, he unleashed a flurry of strikes. 20, 30, 40. Every angle, every joint, every weak spot. Each cut was a scar from the past. Each blow, a memory of pain returned with interest. The architect broke free, roared, and slammed both fists down, erupting the ground in a pillar of ruin energy. Joshua was caught mid-attack, flung high, but he twisted in the air, flipped, and pointed his blade downward. With a war cry, he dove. The blade hit the architect's shoulder like lightning from the stars. Crack. The architect staggered, dropped to one knee, his back cracking open with divine steam. Joshua landed behind him, panting, eyes glowing. The architect looked up, snarling. "You always hated your own strength," he growled. "You never accepted what you were." Joshua pointed the blade at his head. Wrong again. His wings unfurled. Not angelic, not demonic, a fusion of both. Wings of fire and shadows, of light and blood. Each feather twitched with will. The architect stood tall again. "Then let me show you what you should have become." He reached into his own chest and pulled out a core, a pulsing orb of ruin, swirling with collapsed stars and broken echoes. He crushed it in his palm. The battlefield exploded. Space twisted. Time recoiled. The architect's body turned jet black, his form now layered in floating glyphs and runes that orbited like planets. His voice was gone, replaced by soundless pulses of command. He vanished. Joshua's eyes widened. Then, boom, the architect hit him from behind, a punch that sent Joshua flying through 3 monoliths. He landed, coughing blood. Before he could rise, the architect was on him. Slam after slam, fists raining down like siege weapons. Each blow created a crater. The last one buried Joshua in the ground. Silence. Smoke. Then light. The crater flared white. The architect stepped back. Joshua rose. Slowly. Face bruised. Armor cracked. But his eyes burned brighter than ever. "You hit hard," he said. "But I hit back." He gripped his blade in both hands, and the weapon changed. Longer. Heavier. The edge glowed with living intent. The architect charged. Joshua did too. Clang! Their weapons clashed. Shockwaves blew away the ruins around them. They traded blows midair, Joshua spinning, slicing, deflecting. The architect using fists, elbows, knees, his body a weapon of ancient war. They moved faster now, so fast even time seemed too slow to follow. And then, Joshua stopped running. He stood still, waited. The architect lunged full speed. Joshua sidestepped and stabbed up. Shink! The blade pierced the architect's stomach, through and through. Joshua grabbed the hilt with both hands and twisted. Golden fire erupted. The architect screamed, his body convulsing, bleeding ruin light. Joshua stepped forward face to face. You lost the moment you turned this personal. He pushed the blade deeper and then kicked the architect back. The Titan stumbled, clutching the wound, shaking. Joshua raised his blade again. Let's finish it. The architect stood tall just once more, both of them breathing hard, both ready. And then, they charged, clashed in the center, and the world broke. Chapter 210, Defeat. Boom! The impact of their final clash split the air. Joshua and the architect collided in a blinding flash, their combined force sending out a ripple that cracked the horizon. Space trembled. The stars above flickered like dying embers. The ground beneath them shattered completely, falling away into a chasm of molten ruin. They didn't stop. Joshua twisted midair, wings slicing outward, dragging heat and shadow behind him. He slashed horizontally, firelight screaming from his blade. The architect caught it barehanded. The blade bit into his palm, sparks flying. He didn't flinch. He pulled Joshua forward with a single jerk and headbutted him again. Crack! Joshua staggered back, jaw bleeding but didn't fall. He spun with the momentum, slashed low, cutting through the architect's thigh. The monster hissed and retaliated, swinging a ruin-covered elbow that Joshua blocked with his forearm. The block sent out a shockwave, launching debris into the air. They both jumped back, panting, eyes locked. Then, a new light cut across the broken sky. Bright, controlled, final. Aurora dropped in first, landing on a floating shard of obsidian midair, eyes focused, blade in hand. And behind her, Adam. He didn't land. He descended, cloak unfurling like a banner, his body surrounded by faint motes of vocifery. Every step he took in the air bent the laws beneath his feet. The architect turned, blood dripping from his mouth. You! Adam raised a brow. Busy. Joshua grinned. Little bit. Without a word, Adam moved. He appeared next to Joshua in a flicker of displacement, palm glowing faintly. You all right? Joshua nodded once. He's heavier now, holding something deeper. I noticed. The architect stepped forward, his voice low and full of rage. You always walk into fights that aren't yours. Adam tilted his head. I make them mine. Crack! The architect stomped. The ground erupted again, spires of ruin shooting upward. Adam grabbed Joshua's shoulder, blinked, and they were gone, dodging mid-burst. They reappeared above the battlefield, just as the spires stabbed the space where they stood seconds before. Adam hovered, left hand raised. His voice, calm. Collapse. The spires folded inward like crumpled paper. Reality twitched. The architect staggered, caught in the aftershock of Adam's manipulation. Joshua launched first. He dove straight down, blade forward, flaming wings trailing after images. The architect looked up, raised an arm to block. But Adam was already below him. He'd reverse space. One hand lifted. Fall. Gravity reversed on the architect alone. He was slammed upward into Joshua's dive.
Kabodlom. Joshua soared met flesh.
A full-speed impalement. Ruin blood erupted, black and molten. The architect roared in agony, flailing midair. Aurora didn't wait. She vanished, then appeared on the architect's shoulder, blade spinning. She stabbed down, light erupting in a tight column from her weapon. The architect screamed, grabbing for her. But she was already gone, sliding down his back in a streak of radiance. He dropped like a meteor, crashing into the broken battlefield below. The ground cratered, forming a massive hole that hissed with steam and ruin.
Adam landet kaimli.
Joshua touched down next to him, rolling his neck. Aurora reappeared behind them, floating. The architect rose. Barely. Half his body was cracked open, his arms sparking with raw ruin. His skin shifted, trying to reform but failing. His chest glowed like a broken engine. You think numbers change fate? He snarled. You need each other to stand. Weakness by design. Adam's expression stayed flat. He raised his hand again, 2 fingers extended. Silence. The sound around the architect cut out. No voice.
No breath. No roar.
Joshua stepped forward. Now. They moved together. Adam twisted the field. Time stretched for them, slowed around the architect. Aurora dove first, her blade cutting across his leg again. Fast and clean. She vanished mid-swing, blinked into his blind spot, and stabbed the other leg, severing the muscle. The architect dropped to one knee. Joshua followed next, aerial strike, sword drawn back. He came down like a hammer. Crack! His blade hit the architect's shoulder, cleaving deep. A geyser of ruin burst upward. The architect raised his arm barely, trying to retaliate. And then Adam arrived. He didn't speak. He touched the architect's forehead. Invert. The architect's world flipped inside out. His balance reversed. His pain redoubled. His perception twisted, seeing the battlefield from 1,000 angles at once. None of them real. He staggered, disoriented. Joshua took advantage. He slashed upward from below, cutting open the architect's chest in a crescent of golden fire. Aurora dove again, her blade slicing through one of the floating glyphs around his neck, deleting one of his stabilizing runes. The architect's body glitched. His ruin core pulsed wildly. He raised both hands, screaming silently, then slammed them together, unleashing a blast of pure void. Adam's eyes narrowed. Pause. The blast froze in place, like a paused frame of a nightmare. He turned to Aurora. Now. She blinked through the frozen explosion, appeared in front of the architect's face. She plunged her blade into his eye. The glyphs around his body shattered. Time resumed. Boom! The explosion rippled outward but missed all three of them. Only the architect stood inside it. Alone. Burning. He dropped to both knees. Chest heaving. Blood pouring. His body falling apart from the inside out. Joshua walked up, blade dragging behind him. This is for the collapse. He stabbed. Straight into the architect's side. Aurora stepped up beside him. This is for the girl you erased. She followed, her blade sinking into his back. Adam stood in front, and with a final breath he spoke a word. End. The architect froze, then shattered. Not into dust, not into blood, but absence. Gone. Unwritten. Undone. The battlefield went still. The sky softened. The ruin faded. Joshua lowered his blade, exhaling. Aurora wiped blood from her cheek. Adam adjusted his cloak. Nobody spoke for a moment. Then Adam looked up. We're not done. In the distance, something else moved. But for now, the architect of ruin was no more. Chapter 211 Gods. They destroy the pawns, well, the man said, voice low, gaze locked on the swirling orb of vision before him. Within its depths, echoes of battle danced. Flashes of Joshua's blade, the collapse of the architect, and the final unraveling of the spiral. A faint smirk touched his lips. They've served their purpose. Beside the orb, another hovered, this one trembling, pulsing with muffled screams. It didn't show images, contained them, entire souls locked within, a prison of memory and pain. Footsteps echoed behind him, not loud, measured, like a poem only half remembered. Then a voice followed, soft, airy, and edged like a blade made of silk. That girl's foresight is terrifying, the woman said. If I weren't who I am, even I would not have been able to avert her gaze. She stepped into view, tall, ethereal. Her hair was a cascade of flowing white, drifting behind her like starlight caught in slow motion. Her eyes were veiled with rings of ever-shifting patterns, moving like planetary orbits, always watching, always knowing. Her skin was pale gold, and her presence bent the air, making space feel slightly off, like you were standing in a room built from future thoughts. She wore no crown. She was the crown, goddess of prophecy, foresight, and causality, the man said, glancing sideways. You speak as if you expected them to fail. I foresaw only branches, she replied, folding her arms. Infinite ones. But even among those, only two paths ever led them close to victory. One ended in ruin, the other in revolt. He chuckled under his breath. And what are we, then? She looked at him. Constance. He turned fully now, facing her. That's the difference, he said quietly, between us and the ones they call gods. Joshua,
Adam,
Zariel, the spiral, the architect, even your precious Caden. He gestured toward the orb again. The screams paused, then resumed. They're all playing in a sandbox they never built, borrowing power, borrowing meaning. He stepped forward, slowly lifting a hand toward the void above them. It shimmered like glass, revealing the image of the Origin Realm, a boundless nexus connecting hundreds of universes, its course spiraling with reality veins and godly seats of power. The Origin Realm, he whispered, a crown of stars they think makes them kings. The woman's eyes narrowed, orbitals spinning slightly faster. They believe the realm is the source. The man's smirk deepened. But we were before the source. Long ago, before the Origin Realm, before the seats of the Celestial Council were carved from conceptual marble, before the pantheons stacked realms like chessboards and called themselves divine, before nexus points and god cores, there was will. Pure. Endless. Formless. Not the will of all, not a divine force. Not something shared. Singular. A spark that hovered in the nothingness beyond time and substance. It didn't speak. It didn't think. It decided. And from that decision, she awoke. The goddess of prophecy didn't rise from a lineage. She wasn't born from chaos, nor crafted by belief. She willed herself into focus, because something had to see what came after the will's spark. She was that answer. Her first breath turned the void into a mirror. Every possible future, every non-future, reflected in that mirror, creating the first fractures of time. And when she saw all the paths that could exist, she named them. Names are bindings. So came causality. Then came others. Not many, just enough. They didn't emerge like mortals do. They weren't born screaming. They came fully formed. Absolute. The man beside her, he came from the moment the will considered power without purpose. He was the god of intent, of action without need, the originless flame. Where she foresaw and anchored, he simply did. Without question, without law. Together, they stood in the before time, watching universes unfold from their residual thoughts. They never ruled. They didn't have to. They existed, and their existence made space for all other things to follow. And then, the false gods came. Realms bloomed from belief. Divinities were born from fear, love, war, worship. They rose and fought. They fell and ascended again. And eventually, they built the Origin Realm. A divine web spun from the threads the goddess herself once cast to organize possible futures. They claimed thrones, created systems, divided creation into ranks and paths. But they didn't know. They didn't remember that long before the titles of true God, supreme deity, or architect were uttered, there were those who had no need to claim divinity, because they were the axis around which meaning turned. Back in the present, the man turned from the orb, gaze now distant. They think they've won something, he said. Joshua, Adam, Aurora. Even Zariel when he finally awakens what he sealed away. The goddess didn't respond. He stepped toward her. There's only one reason we're watching instead of stepping in. Her eyes flickered. You want the veil to thin. He nodded. Let them tear open the last wall. So they can see us? She asked. So we can remind them, he replied. What actual gods look like. The orb pulsed one final time. An image of Adam standing at the edge of the battlefield, cloak torn, eyes glowing with vocifery. The goddess sighed softly. He was never meant to exist. No, the man agreed. But now that he does. He turned toward the far wall of the chamber, where a sealed gate hovered. Not magic, not tech, just presence, locked behind the symbol of a silent eye. He stepped toward it. Let him scream, and with a whisper of his finger, The seal shivered. Back to Adam. I thought I saw something, Adam muttered, eyes narrowing as he glanced toward the vanishing echoes in the distance. He turned back, the fire in his expression softening as he approached Aurora. Without a word, he leaned in and pressed a kiss to her lips, firm, grounding. Don't ever pull something like that again, he said quietly against her mouth. Aurora smiled, brushing a hand against his jaw.
No promises.
She kissed him back, brief, warm, defiant as always. Behind them, Joshua cleared his throat. Loudly. Ahem. I'm still bleeding here, by the way. Chapter 212, The Proposal. Asterius, the heart that waited. The wind pulled gently at their cloaks as the portal snapped open behind them, crackling once before fading into silence. The rift was behind them now. Fractured, echoing, no longer screaming. The fight was over. For now. Adam, Joshua, and Aurora stepped through the veil and into Asterius. And the world changed. The moment their feet touched the ancient stone floor, the air shifted. Warm.
Familiar.
No pressure. No gods whispering in the corners of space. Just light, soft and gold, spilling through wide windows that lined the sky-carved citadel. Laughter echoed from somewhere deeper inside. Joshua raised an eyebrow. Adam sighed, slowly easing off his cloak. They're throwing a feast. Aurora tilted her head. How do you know?
Adam simirket.
Because I smell something that wasn't cooked by any of us. They stepped through the main hall, arched and wide, the walls marked with runes that pulsed faintly in their presence. Torches flared to life as they passed. Their boots echoed in rhythm with the quiet hum of distant voices. Joshua muttered, If I see one banner with my name on it, you'll smile and eat. Adam cut in. Aurora smiled faintly. We all need it. They reached the central gate, and it swung open before them. Not with force, not with magic. It opened because it wanted to, because Asterius knew its own. The scent of roasted meat and spice flooded out to greet them. Laughter grew louder. Voices rose, then fell. Inside, warmth. A long table stretched across the grand chamber, lined with dishes and pitchers, candles and laughter. Everyone was already seated. And as the trio walked in, the noise died for just a second. Then erupted in cheers. Chairs scraped back. Smiles broke free. Arms reached out. Words stumbled over joy. Adam didn't say anything at first. He just looked around. There they were, all of them. Safe. Laughing. Whole. Joshua chuckled under his breath. Guess you were right. They did prepare something. Aurora leaned into him with a soft smile. You're still bleeding, you know? I'm bleeding for flavor. That earned a laugh from someone at the table. At the far end, a chair scraped as one figure stood and held out a large plate. The food stacked on it defied architecture. Adam sighed again.
Val.
Of course. Joshua shook his head. You invited Vale to cook? I didn't invite him, Varian said. I mentioned hunger and existence in the same sentence. That's all it takes. They moved through the crowd, weaving between greetings, half-hugs, shoulder taps. Everyone wanted to say something. Nobody wanted to interrupt the moment. Adam paused beside the table. His eyes scanned the spread. Bread baked in cosmic flame. Soup laced with starfruit and herbs that didn't grow on any known continent. Roasted beast from a realm none of them remembered leaving alive. There was even something that looked like cake, but blinked when Joshua stared at it too long. Adam raised an eyebrow at the blinking slice. Vale appeared at his elbow, grinning. It's friendly. Adam shook his head. You've been inside my pantry again, haven't you? I would never, Vale began. Yes, you did. Fair, Vale admitted. But it was for the greater good. Joshua muttered. That cake's looking at me again. Aurora sat first. She didn't say anything. She just sank into the seat and closed her eyes for a second. Peace wasn't loud. It didn't announce itself. It just settled. Adam sat beside her, shoulders relaxing for the first time in days. He glanced around the table. No grand speeches.
No toasts.
just clinking utensils and laughter building again. Joshua, for once, didn't complain. He sat across from them, grabbed a plate, and stabbed something that may or may not have still been breathing. "Whatever this is," he said, "it tastes like victory." Aurora blinked. "How does victory taste?" "Like too much salt and not enough guilt," he replied. More laughter. More food. Outside, Asterius stood still beneath a calm sky.
No storms.
No rips in reality. Just the gentle glow of distant stars, and the quiet beat of something older than war, belonging. Inside, as the feast stretched on, stories began. They were exaggerated, twisted, ridiculous. Nobody cared. Joshua mimed getting flung across 10 dimensions. Adam shook his head, correcting him, saying it was only 7. Aurora claimed credit for 3 impossible kills. Someone else swore they saw the spiral cry. And somewhere in the middle of it all, Adam looked around again, not for danger, not for prophecy, but to see them, the ones he fought for, the ones who stayed, his people, his home. He caught Aurora's eyes. She smiled, tired but still burning. Across the table, Joshua raised his glass, not to make a point, just to drink, and Adam leaned back, exhaling.
No visions. No voices.
No wait, just food, laughter, and the quiet breath of a moment earned. They didn't know what would come next, but for now, this was enough. The feast slowed as the stars climbed higher. Laughter dimmed into soft conversation, and plates once full now held only crumbs and stories. Adam stood quietly, untouched wine in hand, his gaze drifting toward the high archways at the back of the hall, toward the cliffside balcony where the moonlight danced. Aurora caught his glance. No words, just the look. She stood slowly and followed as he slipped out of the hall, boots light against stone, cloak trailing like shadow behind flame. They walked in silence down the corridor, lanterns lighting up one by one as they passed. Asterius seemed to know where they were going. It always did. When they reached the balcony, the wind greeted them first, soft, cool, threading through Aurora's hair. Below them, the world stretched wide. Valleys, rivers, the threads of stars weaving through the sky like silk. Adam stopped at the edge, hands in his pockets. Aurora stepped beside him, close enough to hear his breath. "This view never gets old," she said quietly. "It's not the view," Adam said, eyes still forward. "It's who's in it." She turned to him, brows raised. "You're being poetic now?" "I'm being honest." He faced her fully. The wind stilled. Aurora watched him, studying the way his eyes softened, how the usual storm behind them was still, just for her. He reached into his coat slowly, pulled out a small, silver thread-like band, simple.
No gem.
Just something forged from starlight and silence. She blinked.
Adam.
"I don't want peace without you," he said, voice low but steady. "I don't want victories where you're not there to make fun of my bad ideas. I don't want a world saved, if it means losing the one person who makes it feel worth saving." She didn't speak. She just looked at him, and the stars pulsed overhead, quiet witnesses. "I love you," he said. "I have for a long time. I'm done hiding it behind war and survival. So if you'll let me, I want to make this forever. Not fate, not prophecy, just choice." He held the ring out. The silence between them stretched, long, warm. Then Aurora stepped forward. She didn't take the ring. Not yet. Instead, she wrapped her arms around him and pulled him in, forehead resting against his. "I would have said yes before you even asked," she whispered. He smiled, finally, and slipped the ring onto her finger. It shimmered briefly, then settled. Perfect fit. They stood there for a long moment, wrapped in starlight and wind, 2 silhouettes carved into the sky. And above them, the moon glowed brighter, as if blessing something even the gods had no say in. Chapter 213, Return. Asterius. The moon lingered a little longer in the sky that night, as if it didn't want to miss it, as if, for once, even time knew to hold still. Adam and Aurora walked back together, side by side, no hurry in their steps. The air around them felt lighter now, like the burden they always carried had finally loosened, just enough to let them breathe without armor. The hall was quieter than before. Most of the plates had been cleared, the candles burned low. But the moment they stepped through the archway, the hush shifted. All eyes turned. And then, cheers, again. But not loud this time. Not like war had been won. Something softer, warmer. Everyone stood. Not all at once. Not rehearsed. Just one after another, with small smiles and quiet claps and a few teary looks from the younger ones who didn't fully understand what just happened, but knew it mattered. Aurora smiled, tucking close to Adam's side, their fingers laced. She wasn't one to show nerves, but there was something in her eyes that shimmered, like the way the stars did just before dawn. Joshua gave a two-finger salute from his seat and raised his drink. Caden clapped once, slow and proud. "About time," he said under his breath, but loud enough for Adam to hear. Adam rolled his eyes, but his grin gave him away. Alice stepped forward first, drawing Aurora into a hug, then looked up at Adam. "If you break her heart, I break your ribs."
Adam noddet, deatpan.
Fair. Vale placed a glass down, grinning wide. "Someone bake that cake another slice. It lived through a lot, but it should witness love too." Everyone laughed again, the kind that carries through walls and settles in the bones. But not everyone was smiling. Not entirely. From the far end of the room, Alexandria stood apart, half shielded by the shadows near the stairway. Her arms were crossed, but not coldly, just quiet. Her smile didn't quite reach her eyes.
Adam noticed.
Of course he did. But he didn't move right away. It wasn't the kind of thing you fix with words. Not yet. Someone else moved instead.
Alfred.
He walked up beside her, hands in his pockets, hair slightly messy, a faint smudge of stardust still on his cheek from an earlier prank gone wrong. He didn't say anything at first, just stood beside her. Alexandria glanced at him, eyes soft but distant. "You're not going to tease me like the others?" she asked quietly. He shrugged. "You'd just punch me." A small breath of laughter escaped her lips, but it faded quickly. "I'm happy for them. I really am." "I know." She looked down. "It's just, he's always been this thing, this constant. Even before all of this, he was always there." Alfred didn't interrupt. "And now it's like he's gone." "Not really. Just not mine anymore." "You were never losing him, Alex." She blinked. He glanced toward Adam, who was still talking with the others, laughing more freely than he had in years. "You were holding on so tight. You didn't notice he was already holding someone else." Alexandria's eyes shimmered just a bit, but she didn't let them fall. "I know." There was a silence. Then Alfred's voice dropped, softer now. "They'd be proud, you know." She turned. "Who?" "Our parents." Alexandria stilled. Alfred continued. "If they could see him now, see how far he's come, the man he is, they'd be proud. Of all of us." A long pause. Then Alexandria leaned her head gently on his shoulder, just for a second. "Don't tell Adam I got soft. I'll take it to my grave." Later, the rooftop. Night had almost passed. Only a few remained in the hall. Joshua had taken Caden aside for some quiet training talk. Vale was still inspecting the leftover cake as if it might have grown wings. Adam stood near the open window again, Aurora at his side. He looked out toward the stars, then down at Asterius below. His city, his world, his home. Aurora rested her hand over his heart. "You okay?" "Yeah," he said. Then he smiled faintly. "I'm good. You know we won't get many nights like this." "I know." She leaned into him. "Then let's make this one count." Adam tilted his head, eyes softening. "Always." Behind them, the golden lanterns of Asterius burned gently through the dark, casting light on those who had stayed, on those who chose love when war could have been easier. And somewhere in the far, far distance, behind reality's last curtain, something stirred, but it did not rise. Not yet, because for now, in a citadel carved from memory and miracle, peace had a name, and it answered to Adam. The stars hadn't moved. The wind was soft, still warm against Adam's face. Aurora's hand rested on his chest, her presence grounding him, anchoring him to the peace they had earned. But something shifted. Not around him. In him. A dull thrum pulsed through his core. Quiet, slow, but wrong. His eyes narrowed. Aurora noticed instantly.
Adam,
He didn't answer. His hand drifted slightly to his side, fingers curling in reflex. The pulse came again, this time stronger, like a beacon from far, far away. From home. Their original home. Adam stepped away from the ledge, his mind already unraveling the folds of reality around him. Something's wrong. He didn't hesitate. He lifted his hand, clenched it, and tore space open. The air screamed quietly as the tear widened, revealing swirling black layered with streaks of crimson lightning. A gate to where it all began. Aurora stepped in behind him, sharp.
Adam,
He looked at her once. His eyes told her everything. She nodded, and together they stepped through. Silence. No, not silence.
absence.
They emerged into orbit first, above the very planet where their faction had once stood strong. The world that held their first hopes, their early battles, where cities touched stars and ideals became law. But now, it was gone. Not shattered, not burning, empty. The skies were dim, covered in clouds of ash and fractured light. Buildings that once reached like spires toward the heavens were now half-buried, crumbled, or completely erased.
No lights. No voices.
No movement. Adam's boots hit the ground. Dust swirled at his ankles. He took one step forward, and the ground creaked beneath him. Not from weakness, but from memory, like it remembered being alive once. Aurora appeared beside him moments later, her cloak fluttering as she landed softly. What the hell happened here? She breathed, eyes scanning the broken horizon. She lifted a hand, and her pupils flared, gold turning deep eclipse. Her vision, eclipse sight, pushed outward. But then, nothing. Her breath caught. She stepped back slightly, shaken. I can't see. Adam turned, confused. What do you mean? Not just the past. Not just now. I can't see anything, she said, voice tightening. Like something's cutting me off. Something bigger. She focused again, harder. Still nothing. It's like the future isn't written. Like someone ripped it out before it could exist. Adam looked around slowly, his fists clenched. This place had once thrived. He remembered the laughter, the sound of engines, the people they saved, the battles they fought to carve a new future here. Now it felt like walking through a graveyard that hadn't been buried yet. He dropped to one knee, brushing dust off the stone beneath him. The markings, sigils, once glowing with life, were scratched out, not weathered, deliberately erased. Aurora's voice was quiet now. This wasn't destruction.
Adam stood.
She met his gaze. This was removal. He stared at the sky. No stars blinked back. Just a smear of gray behind a dying atmosphere. Then he spoke. Quiet. Cold. Someone's covering their tracks. Adam stood still. Just for a breath. A long, silent one. But inside, he was burning. The memory of this place wasn't just old. It was sacred. This was where they built everything. The first sparks of hope. The first time he let himself believe. It was more than home. It was proof they mattered. And now, gone.
No graves.
No names. No signs of struggle. Just nothing. Aurora stepped closer.
Adam,
He raised his hand, slow, steady, like a storm trying to keep its form. Then his fingers twitched, and his aura cracked the world open. The space around him snapped. Air warped. Time trembled. The sky above twisted into fractured hexes, the color bleeding out like spilled ink on parchment. Aurora shielded her eyes. Behind him, the ground cracked in spirals, each line glowing with deep, royal gold. the mark of a supreme monarch unchained. Adam didn't roar, didn't scream, didn't raise his voice, but everything shook like he had. His cloak billowed wildly, caught in a wind that didn't exist. His eyes, those storm-dark irises, flared with radiant fire. Not magic, not anger, judgment, pure and final. This wasn't war, he said, voice low, but every syllable shook the dust off the earth. It was erasure. He lifted his hand again. His palm bled light. Not gold, not white. Monarch light, the kind that thrones kneel to. Aurora stepped back, just slightly, feeling the shift. The dominion around him was growing, a visible distortion in the air, stretching outward, rewriting the very rules of space around his body. Reality groaned. Skies buckled. A nearby mountain, untouched before, now folded inward, reduced to dust without sound. Adam stared at the hollow ground beneath his feet. His voice came again, deeper. Someone thinks they're gods. The sigils around him, once scorched out, suddenly flared back to life, drawn out by the sheer pressure of his presence. They didn't glow. They obeyed. I don't care who they are. He turned his head slightly, just enough to meet Aurora's gaze. No one touches our people. He stepped forward, the world cracking with every motion. And walks away. She said nothing, just nodded once. Adam raised both hands, and with a wordless surge of power, he tore open the layers of existence. A second rift appeared, spiraling, chaotic, dragging in wind and ash. Not to leave, to track, to find whatever force had blocked even Eclipse sight. Whoever did this, he said as the rift pulled open wider. I'm coming. He stepped in, and the world, the dead, silent, forgotten world, shivered, not from fear, but because something had noticed, and somewhere, far above the veils of divine and false gods, something ancient stirred, and turned its eyes toward Adam. Chapter 2:14. Enlands. Asterius. The words hung in the air like frost, unspoken shock freezing the room in place. Aurora stood at the center, cloak still dusted from the broken world they had returned from, eyes distant, like they were still staring into that empty sky. Her voice was steady, but the edge of disbelief still clung to every word. They're gone, she said again. All of them. Alfred's fist slammed into the wall. A loud crack followed, shards of stone falling to the floor. What do you mean by gone? He shouted. He wasn't asking. He was demanding the world to give him a better answer. One that didn't exist. Aurora didn't flinch. She just stared at him, haunted. I mean the faction, our people, the cities, the outposts, the defenses, everything we built back in our original universe. It's like they were never there. There was silence. Cold. Heavy. Even the walls of Asterius seemed to pull tighter, holding its breath with the rest of them. Our family, Alfred said again, slower now, quieter. Our family. Aurora looked away. It hurt more to meet their eyes than to face the endless nothing. They were erased. I can't see anything. Not what happened. Not what's happening now. Not even the tiniest thread of a future. My Eclipse sight. She shook her head, voice faltering. It's blind. Across the room, Arya stood still, arms crossed, her brows furrowed, but her expression calm. Too calm. She wasn't panicking. She was thinking, because none of it made sense. A sudden attack? On them? Without a sound? Without a sign?
Impossible.
Their father an apex force, their mother a goddess of conceptual will, and Male, a living weapon, an absolute monarch forged for singularity-level warfare. No battle happened. No alarms were tripped. No power surged. It just vanished. And if it wasn't a battle, then what the hell was it? Wait! Joshua's voice broke through, rough but steady. What about Male? He asked. Aurora turned slowly toward him. I don't know, she admitted. Adam looked for him first. Nothing.
No trace.
Not even residual aura. It's like. She stopped. Joshua's jaw clenched. No one ever really loses mail. Not without something big. Bigger than gods. Bigger than systems. Alice stepped forward, eyes wide, voice low. And Adam? Is he? Aurora didn't let her finish. He's tearing the universe apart. Her voice wasn't poetic. It was literal. Crozak's with him. So is Wraith. They've split paths. Scouring reality, crossing timelines, going through forbidden doors we weren't even sure still existed. He's not waiting for answers. He's digging them out. Alfred stepped away from the wall, breathing hard. And what happens when he finds out who did this? Aurora didn't answer right away. Instead, she looked out the window. The stars looked back, silent. Then softly, he won't stop. Not until the last thread of that force is unmade. And after that, she exhaled. After that, he might not stop at all. The weight of that sentence hit them like gravity itself. Adam wasn't just a leader. He was a monarch that rewrote rules by existing. And now, he wasn't leading. He was hunting. Caden, who had stayed quiet till now, leaned against the doorframe. Then we need to help, he said simply. Joshua glanced his way. With what? We don't even know what we're facing. We don't even know where to start. We do, Arya said suddenly. Eyes still locked on a distant point only she could see. Everyone turned. She stepped forward, voice calm but sharp. We start by finding the void, because anything that can erase us isn't working from light or time or even causality. It's working from nothing. Vale let out a low breath from the corner. You mean the Endlands? Arya nodded. Aurora looked to her then, a flicker of hope threading into the edge of her voice. If they used the Endlands to wipe us, we might still be able to trace the echo. Joshua crossed his arms, eyes dark. Then we follow the echo. Alice looked around the room. And Adam? Aurora smiled faintly. He'll feel it. Wherever he is, he'll find us. They all stood there, the firelight flickering low behind them, shadows dancing like old memories. The silence no longer felt empty, just waiting for the next step, the first real one, toward the thing that stole their past. And maybe the gods behind the curtain, elsewhere, the void. Adam sat alone, floating in silence so deep it didn't even echo. The void didn't speak. It didn't breathe. It just was. Endless. Empty. Cold. But not colder than him. His cloak drifted like torn shadow in the stillness, the faint flickers of his aura cracking through space around him. Red, black, silver, colorless. He didn't move. He didn't have to. He was remembering. The weight of childhood, the way the world forced him to grow too fast. The day he lost his parents. The day the tears dried faster than they fell. Because he didn't have the luxury to break. He had 2 siblings, promise, and a hunger to never feel that helpless again. So he became something else. A warrior, a leader, a monarch. And when power finally answered his call, he didn't use it to destroy. He used it to rebuild. He brought them back. He saved what he had lost. He carved a place where his family would never feel what he felt. And now, gone. All of it. Erased like a name from a broken tombstone. His fingers curled. The void around him rippled. A tear opened, then vanished, then opened again, twitching like it was afraid of what sat in its center. Adam didn't blink. Funny. His voice was quiet, dry, distant. I gave everything for them. Everything. He lifted a hand slowly, and the space in front of him cracked, like glass under a whisper. And someone thought it'd be funny to take them away. His eyes burned now. Not with heat, not with magic, but with something older, wilder. A storm that had been waiting years to rise. I've lost before, he said. I survived it. I became stronger. The stars behind the veil flickered, one by one, like they knew what was coming. But this time, his aura unfurled. Not like a wave, like a maw, a monarch's will, unchained. A god who wasn't born to sit on a throne, but to flip the table. I'm not surviving it. He stood slowly, still floating above the nothing, his body glowing with a silent, furious light. They wanted chaos? He smiled. It didn't reach his eyes. Then let the world remember what real chaos feels like. And with a single step,
Adam vaniset.
reality cracked behind him, and the void, for the first time in forever, trembled. Chapter 2:15. Ability created. Omega. Absolute sight. Chronodominion. The tremble didn't fade. It grew. Ripped. Unfolded. The silence that had once cradled Adam like a forgotten memory now recoiled. Like it knew what was about to be born. And then it happened. One flicker. Then another. Then a dozen. All around him the void began to split, but not from violence. From intention. Echoes stepped out. Each one him. Same eyes. Same weight. Same fury held back only by sheer control. They moved as one. Not like soldiers, but like aspects of a mind that had shattered itself on purpose. Adam opened his eyes slowly, golden irises glowing with something vast. Something new. Each version of him blinked into place. Some cloaked in red, others in black, others shifting with smoke and light. They radiated calm precision. One drifted toward a fading star system to scan timelines. Another shot through a gap in space, chasing scent trails of erased events. Two knelt down and placed their palms into the bones of fractured reality, letting raw data bleed into their skin. One simply stood on air, unraveling equations that had never been written. And the real Adam, the center, he remained still, floating, breathing, becoming. He shut his eyes again, and the system woke. You have created a conceptual power. Generating record. Ability created. Omega. Absolute sight. Chronodominion.
Description.
An ultimate omniperspective ability, forged by the monarch of unwritten law, Adam. Chronodominion grants the user total dominion over all aspects of foresight and reality prediction. Not limited by fate, time, probability, or interference, it observes all possible timelines, variants, dimensional echoes, and nonlinear temporal anomalies, across all levels of existence, even realms that do not yet exist. Where eclipse sight stops, chronodominion begins. With this ability, the user may see the beginning and end of any action, decision, or interference across any universe, whether observed or hidden. Lock or remove specific futures from reality as if they never existed. Summon future versions of the self to manifest in real time, each equipped with knowledge and outcome from their timeline. Inhabit multiple points of time simultaneously, allowing the user to exist across overlapping events without paradox. Bypass prophecy locks, metaphysical barriers, or fate-cursed threads. Witness the thoughts, memories, and inner echoes of future selves, even those that never lived. Seal or alter another being's future with a glance. This ability does not generate energy. It rewrites inevitability. Adam's breath was calm now, but the air around him wept. Cracks webbed through the void. Not broken, but reshaped, like glass being melted and blown into new forms. His aura pulsed once, and all the alternate atoms blinked in sync, receiving something. Command. They moved again, scattering through the spaces between dimensions like ghosts unleashed. No signal, no voice, they just knew. Adam opened his eyes. There was no color in them now, only truth. He lifted one hand and closed his fingers. Time stilled. The threads of fate, already distant and hard to trace, snapped into view, not as lines but as veins. Arteries of outcome, pumping in every direction, stretching far into voids that shouldn't even be real. He didn't smile, didn't rage. He simply spoke. I don't need to chase fate anymore. A pulse rippled from his chest, wide and slow, and as it passed, the stars flickered into sharp, high detail. Every point in the cosmos suddenly clear. I am the lens. Another atom stepped beside him, handing him a single fragment. Glowing silver, hot like a memory on fire. The real Adam closed his hand over it. As Adam gripped the fragment of erased memory handed to him by one of his other selves, the light surged, hot, erratic, barely stable. This was no ordinary timeline. It fought to remain unseen, fought against being remembered. But Adam wasn't just remembering. He was commanding history to show itself. The void around him twisted, then broke like a mirror underwater, forming a jagged portal that didn't just open. It bled. The vision unfolded. A world stood still, lush, familiar. The original universe just days before the vanishing. The cities were alive. His faction was whole. Families walked the great sky bridges. Arcane transport lines shimmered through the air. His people were laughing, working, unaware of the shadow peeling into reality like paper soaked in oil. Then, everything froze. Not paused. Held. Time didn't stop naturally. It was grabbed. The light dimmed. Color drained from everything except one figure, standing midair above the capital's heart. A being draped in a robe that shimmered like oil over water. No face, just a smooth mask of shadow and static. His presence felt not from this story. A character misplaced by something older. He raised one hand. Fingers long, abstract, like broken pieces of space-time themselves. He looked around, not at the world but through it, as if judging the quality of the narrative. Then he spoke, not loudly, not angrily, but with finality. False gods always forget what silence sounds like, until they're forced to listen. He slowly turned his hand upward, revealing nothing inside his palm, and yet everything shifted. Reality panicked. The skies fractured into glass mosaics. Rivers ran backward. Suns blinked like faulty lights. And then all sound collapsed into itself, swallowed by the crushing pressure of something impossible. Then the masked being lowered his hand and snapped his fingers. The world did not explode. It forgot to exist. One heartbeat, everything vanished. Not faded, not shattered, just gone. Like a scene deleted from a script that was never written. The people, the cities, the sky itself.
No screams.
No resistance, just absence. Back in the void, vision ends. Adam's hand jerked open, the memory fragment burning out in his palm like ash soaked in lightning. His clones froze, turned. The void itself winced. As if that act, that snap, carried weight even here. Adam stood still for a moment, the image of that faceless figure echoing in the shadows of his mind. "You're not just a god killer," Adam whispered, voice cold. "You're a narrator." He stared into the dark, at the place the vision had come from. "Then let's rewrite the story together." And as his aura surged again, brighter this time, he whispered one more line to no one, and to everyone. "Let's see how long you last when the plot fights back." Chapter 216, Male. Celestial Plane, the Hall of Threads. The stars didn't move here. They watched. The Hall of Threads was woven from the first words ever spoken by the origin gods, suspended in a realm between what was and what could never be. This was where prophecy lived, and where truths not meant for mortal eyes were born and buried. Thea stood at its center, her white robes brushing against the flowing stream of reality that cut through the floor like liquid glass. Her silver eyes flickered violently, the strain of what she'd just seen trembling in her hands. She whispered, voice trembling. "The madman did it." Around her, the ancient strands pulsed in discord, twisting and bending as if trying to untangle what even fate couldn't hold. "We are in a big mess now." A mirror formed in the air, no frame, no shimmer. Just a window, and within it, him.
Adam.
Moving. Not with rage. Not with sorrow. But with purpose. With a clarity that made even the gods feel small. Thea's breath caught. He's no longer following the script. She turned toward the shadow at the far side of the chamber. A figure stood in stillness, unmoving despite the roar of the prophetic stream. Male. The god of intent. Not just divine but precise. A being who didn't act without design. Every word, every motion was a declaration of truth. And he stood there now, quiet, eyes half closed. But even in his silence, Power bled from him like heat from a dying star. Thea's eyes narrowed. As if not seeing his future wasn't enough. Her voice cracked now, biting cold. He had to gain the power to see the future. And beyond. Absolute sight.
Chronodominion.
Even the title sounds like madness. She pointed toward Mael, her voice trembling. This is your fault. Mael's gaze didn't shift. He remained still, calm, as if he had expected this. Thea continued, voice now filled with frustration. You befriended him, Joshua, Aurora. You infiltrated their circle. You studied them, learned them, smiled at them like a brother, when you should have uprooted them there and then. And now, she stepped closer. Now the man they trusted is the one they have to face. Mael finally opened his eyes, and the air folded. His pupils were like inverted stars, gravity wells shaped like intent itself. Looking into them wasn't seeing, it was realizing. Don't mistake my silence for guilt, Thea, he said, voice smooth like stone dragged across crystal. I walked beside him not to destroy him, but to understand why he keeps breaking the rules and surviving. Thea scoffed. You mean you feared he might surpass you? Mael didn't respond immediately. He let the thought hang. Then, he already has. The silence after that was suffocating. Mael stepped forward now, and the shadows bowed away from his form. Not because he was divine, but because he wasn't what they remembered. This was no longer Mael the Nephilim, no longer the friend, no longer the brother. This was the being behind the mask. God-form Mael, the architect of dominance. His robes tore away into fractal pieces, revealing an obsidian form etched with symbols no mortal tongue could hold. His body pulsed with intent, literal, weaponized purpose. Around his head spun a halo, not of light, but of law. Celestial edicts, orbiting him like divine satellites. Each one whispered one rule: obey. Thea staggered back. You're forming your God-true self? Mael raised his hand. With a simple gesture, the Hall of Threads obeyed. Reality paused. Even the stream of fate coiled around him like a leash waiting for a master. I must, Mael said, quiet. He is coming. And then, with unshakable calm, Adam is no longer a storm to be weathered. He's a world you must choose to live or die inside. Thea trembled. She felt it. Even from here, the echo of him breaking closer, tearing through divine veils, shifting closer to truth, to them. What are you going to do? She asked, voice raw. Mael turned to the stars above. His voice dropped, calm and cruel. What I always intended. Teach the false gods that intent alone shapes reality. He looked back, eyes burning, and remind Adam that he may see the future, but I am the reason it happens. The Hall of Threads cracked. Thea stepped back, biting her lip. Something in her chest felt wrong. She had seen 1,000 ends. None were written like this. And the worst part, now, she wasn't sure which of the two monsters would win. Asterius, Deep Wing, Lower Archives. The light was low in the vault. Just enough to see, not enough to feel warm. The air smelled of dust, ink, and memory, like old battles still echoing in the stone. Aurora stood in the middle of the war room's projection table, arms crossed, cloak trailing behind her like a shadow that didn't want to leave. Her eclipse sight still refused to function. Every time she tried, it was like staring into static. She hated it. Caden was across the room, leaning over an ancient map etched with dimensional lines and ley pulses. Joshua stood nearby, tapping the hilt of his blade against his palm. Quiet, restless. Vale was upside down in a floating chair he summoned out of nowhere. Anyone else feel like we're watching the beginning of a bad dream? Alice snapped at him from the other side of the table. Not helping. I wasn't trying to. Aurora finally spoke. Her voice was cold, sharp. I still can't see anything. The room went quiet. Joshua looked up. Not even fragments? She shook her head.
No echoes. No forks. No timelines.
Whatever erased the faction did more than wipe them. It silenced everything tied to them. It's not time magic. It's not dimensional corrosion. She looked at them now, her voice tightening. It's something higher. Caden frowned. How high are we talking? Aurora didn't answer right away. Then finally, think beyond gods. Joshua muttered. Great. Just what we needed. Arya stepped into the room then, her eyes scanning the shifting glyphs on the archive wall. I found something. Everyone turned. She placed a stone tablet onto the center seal. Light scanned across it and then an image hovered in the air. A map, but not of any known world. It pulsed with inkblot voids, jagged pulses of energy arcing like nerves through a decaying brain. The Endlands. Draken leaned forward. I thought that was just a myth. Varian shook his head. It's where erasure magic bleeds into reality. A graveyard of failed dimensions and timelines the system tried to forget. Joshua looked up at Aurora. You said there were no futures left. What if they weren't erased? Aurora met his eyes, and the thought clicked. What if they were dragged into the Endlands? She said, breath slow. And buried there. Caden stood straight. So we're going in. Vale whistled low. I've never liked this plan. Alice didn't even hesitate. We've faced worse. No, we haven't, Vale replied, sitting up for once. You don't understand what's inside the Endlands. It's not monsters. It's fragments. Pieces of gods that failed. Things that never got born properly. The further you go in, the less real you become. Aurora walked forward and touched the edge of the map. It warped slightly under her fingers. The pulse was faint, but it was there. We're going anyway. Arya looked up. Then we prepare. I'll rework our anchors. Anyone without an existential tether won't survive in there. Caden smirked. Guess I should stop drinking Vale's reality-warping tea. Please do. Joshua turned toward the large arch door behind them. Do we tell Adam? Aurora's eyes narrowed, thoughtful. He already knows. She stepped back from the map, her voice low, almost to herself. He always does now. Chapter 217, Misdirection. The Endlands' outer rim. The portal cracked open like the surface of a dying star. Jagged, unstable, hissing with threads of unreality. Aurora stood at the threshold, cloak drawn tight, her hand raised to stabilize the breach. The space beyond the gate wasn't dark. It was colorless, a smear of absence stretching outward into a place where logic didn't hold. Behind her, the team assembled. Caden had ditched his usual gear for something heavier. Spirit thread armor laced with anchor sigils Arya had carved herself. His sword glowed faintly with blue heat, reacting to the shift in plane. Alice was silent, checking the last of her boundary grenades. Her eyes, normally sharp with sarcasm, were hard now, focused. Joshua, steady as ever, carried no blade now. Just his fists wrapped in layered runes that flickered with protective light. He gave Aurora a nod. No words needed. Arya moved between them, laying glyphs onto each chest. These tethers will keep you anchored to your sense of self. If you start forgetting who you are, speak your name. Loud. Often. Vale muttered something under his breath about contracts and death wishes but still stepped forward, holding out his arm. Stamp me, Spellgirl. Arya smirked, pressing the seal to his shoulder. Try not to melt this time. A pulse rippled across the portal. Reality blinked. Here we go, Aurora whispered. They stepped in. The Endlands, threshold corridor. The moment they crossed, sound fell away. Not silence. Just wrong. Like sound didn't belong here anymore. The sky wasn't black. It was shifting like oil on water. There were structures in the distance that moved even when no wind blew. Buildings with windows that opened from the inside. Bridges that crossed over themselves. Broken planets floated above them, spinning slowly on invisible threads. And beneath their feet bones. Not of creatures. Of timelines. The stone cracked as they stepped, not from weight, but from presence. Each step made them feel less. Caden was the first to notice it. Is it just me? Or does your name feel hard to remember right now? Say it, Arya barked. Caden. 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 A pulse of light wrapped around his tether. Stabilized. Aurora frowned. The air is thinning. Not oxygen. Identity.
Val snotted.
Cool. I always wanted to forget I existed. Alice elbowed him. If you vanish, I'm taking your jacket. Fair. Deeper, the erased valley. They followed the pulse Aurora had tracked. An echo, faint, but leading somewhere. It guided them through a field of collapsed cities. Structures made from thoughts, not matter. Fragments of old futures floated midair like shattered glass. A child reaching for a balloon. A father holding a daughter. A kiss that never happened. Each one played on loop before shattering and fading into mist. Joshua walked through one by mistake. His body glitched. His hair turned white for half a second. His age reversed. Then shot forward. Then corrected. He stumbled back, blinking hard. That's new. Aurora helped steady him. Don't interact with memory ghosts. They bite.
Val pointed.
There. The spire. It rose from the center of a crater, twisting upward like a scream carved from metal. Around it, black lightning pulsed in slow motion. A dome of force held the structure locked inside a temporal loop. Arya's eyes widened. That's it. The pulse is coming from that structure. Joshua frowned. This is where the faction was dragged. Alice narrowed her eyes. Then what's holding it prisoner? Inside the spire, Echo Core. The spire door wasn't locked. It just watched them. Each of them felt it as they passed through, like being scanned, weighed, judged. Inside was worse. Rows of memories, living ones, hung from the ceiling like cocoons. People.
Moments.
Events. Frozen in the moment of erasure. The stillness wasn't peaceful. It was deliberate, like something waiting for them to breathe too loud so it could punish them for it. Rows of memory cocoons drifted in the dim, violet air, glowing like lanterns trapped underwater. But they weren't sleeping. They weren't dreaming. They were gone. Aurora stepped forward, her hand reaching slowly toward one. She squinted, trying to focus. Not them, she said, voice quiet. None of them are ours. Caden's steps echoed softly behind her. What? She glanced back. These aren't our people. Alice stepped beside one of the floating forms. Her fingers brushed the edge, and the cocoon hissed slightly. Inside, a face flickered. Young, scared, unknown. She turned. You're right. I don't know this person. Joshua walked along the edge, checking them one by one. His jaw tightened. I'm not feeling anything either.
No aura résonance.
No echoes.
These aren't anyone we've ever known. Vale whistled low from behind a pillar. Okay, what kind of cosmic practical joke is this? Aurora turned to Arya, eyes sharp. Could the trace we followed have been faked? Arya shook her head, quickly typing symbols across her glyph pad.
No.
It was genuine, a signature echo from the last remaining ripple of their presence. But, she looked up slowly. Her expression shifted, tight, frustrated. But the pulse didn't come from here. It bounced off here. Caden raised a brow. So we were chasing a reflection? Aurora cursed under her breath. A trap. Alice's voice dropped. No, not a trap. A redirection. Someone knew we'd look here. Vale paced slowly in a circle. This is bad. Like ancient horror pretending to be nothing bad. A low hum rolled through the spire. And suddenly, all the cocoons turned. Not moved. Turned. Facing them. Joshua stepped forward, fists glowing now. Everyone back. Aurora reached out, trying to track the ripple again. Her hand froze mid-air, and she spoke quietly. They're not dead. Caden blinked. What? They're not dead, she repeated. The faction, our family, they're somewhere else. But they were here, briefly, like they were passed through this place. Joshua clenched his jaw. So this place was a corridor. Or a filter, Arya added darkly. Something erased everyone else, but let our people pass. Somewhere deeper. Aurora's grip tightened on her spell hilt. Then we go deeper.
Val groa ned.
I knew you were going to say that. Alice looked up toward the top of the spire, where a spiraling corridor of violet light shimmered like an upside-down waterfall. Then up, she said, nodding. Next layer. Aurora nodded once, eyes hard. We keep going. Joshua cracked his knuckles. And next time, he stared at one of the watching cocoons. We're not leaving empty-handed. Chapter 218, Valor. The Endlands, the Forgotten Core. Deep beneath the hollow echoes of erased worlds, past the timeline bones and screaming void ashes, there was a place even silence refused to enter. Pit. A cradle. A womb for something older than truth. The shadows didn't swirl here, they listened. Wrapped in layers of nothing, sealed beneath the weight of forgotten decisions and abandoned causeways, something began to breathe. A flicker of light passed through the upper veil, the faint pulse of Aurora and the others reaching deeper. And in response, eyes opened, not glowing, not alive, just their twin voids cut into something that should never have moved. The thing that stirred wasn't a man. It wasn't even a being. It was Valor, a shape sculpted from every moment Adam had doubted, from every rage he buried, from every future he refused to accept. A shadow that didn't follow him, but was born with him, not after. Exactly when Adam entered existence, Valor did too, not as a twin, as the imbalance. He grows louder, Valor said. His voice was like soot whispered across glass, soft, but wrong. He stood now, the mass of darkness folding into something almost human. Not beautiful, not monstrous, just inevitable. Fragments of broken fate orbited his body like shattered halos, and each breath he took stilled the Endlands further, like even destruction wanted to give him space. They crawl closer, the light-bearers, the flame and the frost, the old gods' leftover children. He turned his head slowly, though he had no face to turn. Far above, Aurora's flame flickered as she led the others deeper through the ruins of memories. But they're not what I want. He raised a hand. The veins of the void pulsed beneath his feet, and in them, Adam's name. I wasn't made to see. I was made to unmake. His form pulsed once, shifting slightly, like a reflection struggling to hold itself together. He creates futures, Valor said, stepping toward the edge of the pit, staring through layers of broken time. I erase them. He placed a hand against the air and space bent, then closed it again. Not yet. With that, the darkness folded over him once more. Not hiding, just waiting, because the day Adam met the truth in his own shadow would be the day the world learned what its origin really was. Elsewhere, the stars didn't shine here. They watched, silent, distant, unblinking. Adam sat in the heart of that space, the threads of countless futures coiled around his fingers like burnt strings. His eyes, golden and wild, snapped open, burning not with rage, but clarity. That bastard male, he growled, the words heavy like a curse that had waited too long. I'll kill him with my bare hands. The void around him shuddered, not because of the words, but because of the truth he now held. The truth behind the betrayal. Male god of intent, supreme among the celestial kings, crafted by the highest seat to ensure the balance of divine will. But behind those calm eyes and calculating words was a man who never saw equals. Only tools, only risks. When Adam, Aurora, Joshua, and the others began growing stronger, when they began shaping reality with their presence, Male watched, and what he saw terrified him. Not fear in the mortal sense. No. Fear of losing control. They were anomalies, mortals who had cracked the edge of godhood, friends who challenged fate not by disobedience, but by existing. And that was the problem. Today they call each other brothers and sisters. Male once whispered beneath the stars. Tomorrow, they will call themselves gods. So he came to them, not with chains, but with smiles. He stood beside them in battles. He laughed with them under twin suns. He cried when they won, grieved when they lost. He became one of them. Also, he could study their weakness. And when they left for the origin realm, when their backs were turned, searching for truths beyond the stars, he struck. Not with war, not with fire, with silence. He didn't destroy their homeworld. He took it, folded an entire world out of sync with reality, plucked it from the universe like a page torn from a book, and locked it in a cage of divine law. No one saw it happen.
No alarms. No barkri.
Just gone. And when Adam returned, there was no trace.
No aura.
No hecho.
Only erasure. Now back with Adam. Adam stood now, the truth dancing in front of him like fire refusing to die. His aura flared wide, twisting into shapes too sharp for space to hold. He came to us as a friend, Adam whispered, his voice low, too calm. He knew all our names, all our strengths, all our fears. His fists clenched, space cracked, and he used it. He raised his head, eyes shining like suns caught in a storm. He took everything. Somewhere else, in the Hall of Gods, Mael sat on a throne not built, but declared. His new dominion pulsed beneath him, a stolen world suspended in a prison of divine threads. He smiled faintly. They were always going to rise. I just acted first. His eyes flicked upward, and for the first time in forever, he felt watched, because Adam was coming. And this time it wasn't as a brother, not as a mortal, not even as a monarch, but as something Mael himself helped create, a being beyond balance, a god without permission. The Endland's hollow basin. The air shifted. No warning.
No ripple.
Just wait. It pressed down on Aurora and the others like the sky had collapsed, like gravity remembered it could be cruel. Her boots skidded against the bone-laced floor, and her breath hitched in her throat. Then she felt it.
Aura.
Not like magic, not like divine energy, but something older, something the world itself had forgotten. It wasn't hot or cold. It was just absolute, a presence that felt like it had existed before existence even began. Caden dropped to a knee without realizing. Alice reached for her blade, but her hand trembled. Joshua stood still, fists clenched, scanning the endless, colorless sky. What is this? Arya whispered, her voice hollow like the space around them. The sky above twisted slightly, not visibly, but viscerally, like a veil stretched too far. Then a voice fell, not from above, not from around, but from inside the bones of the world. Go back. The words weren't loud. They didn't have to be. Each syllable carried the weight of forgotten stars, a warning spoken in the tongue of creation itself. The team froze. Even Vale, usually the one to joke, couldn't form words. His mouth opened slightly, then closed again. The voice continued, deep and echoing through places the Endlands weren't meant to echo. You will not find what you seek here. Turn back, or you will awaken that which must not wake. Chapter 219, We Are Replacements. The stillness was unbearable. It was like the entire realm leaned in, holding its breath, waiting for something wrong to start breathing again. Aurora's chest rose and fell in short, sharp bursts. Her eyes darted across the lifeless horizon. Who was that? Alice asked, barely above a whisper. No one answered. Arya gripped her staff tighter. It knew us. Joshua stepped forward slightly, scanning the shifting shadows. That voice. It wasn't hostile. It wasn't friendly either, Caden muttered, still recovering from the earlier pulse of identity drain. Just old. Vale finally spoke, arms crossed tightly across his chest. We should go. I don't care how ancient that thing is. Anything that talks like that has no business knowing our names. Aurora turned her head toward Caden. But then, crack, a golden blur split the space in front of them. A hand. A grip. Fingers wrapped tight around Caden's throat. Lifted. Crushed. Gah! Caden's eyes bulged. Everyone froze. Because the one who grabbed him was Adam. But not calm. Not composed. Not collected. This Adam was burning. His entire form bleeding with golden white energy, like cosmic threads wrapped around living fury. His aura churned like molten law, distorting the endlands around him like the realm itself was trying to look away. Joshua took a step forward.
Adam?
What are you? Shut up, Adam growled. His voice wasn't loud, but it shook the bones of time. Caden struggled in his grip, claws of runes scratching down his chest. But Adam didn't move, didn't blink, didn't flinch. Aurora blinked once. Adam, that's our...
No.
He's not... Adam snapped, and that shut everyone up. His eyes locked on Caden, like a god looking at a lie that had lived too long. You're not our son, he said coldly. You never were. Caden thrashed. What are you talking about? I came from the future. I told you that. Adam's hand glowed brighter. Symbols danced down his arm like script trying to erase lies from the air itself. No future version of me would ever produce something that reeks this much of void-crafted disguise. Joshua's face twisted. Wait, what? Arya looked between them. Is this some kind of trap? Vale took a step back, his voice barely a whisper. Oh no, because now they could see it. Caden's eyes weren't just wide. They were changing, shifting, burning out from behind the irises. Black veins stretched across his face. Fragments of his false identity began to peel, like a mask unraveling from reality itself. Aurora took a step forward, confused. But how? How could he? Adam's grip tightened as his eyes burned with 1,000 timelines flashing at once. He was placed, Adam said, his voice distant now. Put here, crafted, sent to watch us, learn us, mimic bloodlines. Not from the future, not from any reality, but from... He threw Caden down like dead weight. Boom! The crater that exploded beneath Caden's impact folded into itself with a burst of corrupted light. Mael, that bastard. The dust hadn't even settled from the crater when Adam straightened, eyes burning. His aura still warping space around him like gravity forgot how to behave. Everyone stood frozen. No one dared speak. Aurora stared at Caden's remains, what was left of him. A pulsing heap of void and lies, twitching at the edge of unreality. Adam took a deep breath, came out as steam. Mael did this. His voice was sharp, steady, each word pressed with meaning. He played the long game, from the start, pretended to be one of us, laughed with us, trained beside us, sat with us when we made plans for peace. He turned slowly, facing them all. But it was never peace for him. It was control. Aurora's hands curled into fists. Joshua looked sick. You're saying he what? Built an army of fakes.
Adam nodded.
Not just fakes. Constructs. Living ghosts pulled from the edges of forgotten timelines. Voided reflections. Stitched with stolen blood and prophecy fragments. Arya stepped forward. But how did we not notice? Because he used the origin rift. The one place even gods don't go. He found a way to bypass reality itself. Adam's face darkened. He took a piece of it, caged it, turned it into a forge. And then, he started making replacements. He motioned to the crater. That Caden was his first success. Alice's voice came sharp. So where's the real one? Where's your actual son? Adam's jaw tightened. I don't know. Crack. Suddenly, the air behind them twisted, split, and laughed. Low at first, mocking, then louder, like thunder dragged across broken glass. From behind a jagged tear in the air, a hand emerged, pulling apart the fabric of the endlands as if it were paper. Eli, stepping through like he owned the place. His smile was wild. Loose, eyes glowing with a cruel, crooked light. You always were dramatic, Adam, Eli said, clapping slowly as he emerged from the swirling void behind him. But this? Oh, this was a masterpiece. Joshua's hand went to his blade instantly. Aurora stepped back beside Adam, fire stirring in her eyes. Vale whispered under his breath. He opened a direct rip from Asterius. Here. Who the hell is he? Eli raised his arms, soaking in the tension like it fed him. Come on, now.
No welcome?
No applause for the real actor behind the scenes. Adam's eyes narrowed. Cut the act. Eli tilted his head. What act? You're not Eli.
Eli grinned wide.
Took you long enough. And then, Caden stirred. His body, once broken and collapsing, began to move again. Runes crawling back together, shadows rethreading across limbs like puppeteer strings. He stood, but not like before. His voice now came deeper, rougher, inhuman. Guess it's time to stop pretending. His skin cracked, shadows leaking from beneath. Ribs split outward, reshaping. Hair turned silver, then black, then silver again, never settling. Two glowing sigils ignited across his chest, shaped like inverted crowns. His transformation had begun.
Eli smiled wide.
His skin peeled away in strips of light, revealing a form underneath laced with void veins and pure origin energy. His smile stayed, but it was wrong now, too wide, too many teeth. His real voice came through, layered, echoing, monstrous. You know what the best part was? He looked at Aurora. At first, I was just meant to spy on him, watch his growth, track his evolution. He turned to Adam. But watching you break fate, watching you defy the gods, love someone like her? He chuckled darkly. I envied you. His body finished shifting, tall, black-cloaked, with wings made of broken space unfurling behind him. His eyes burned like dying stars. I wanted that power, that purpose. Caden, now fully changed, stood beside him. Taller, broader, a weapon of void and vengeance. Adam didn't blink, didn't flinch, just raised his head, calm as thunder before the strike. So, what are you now? He asked. Usurpers, Aurora said, stepping beside him. Joshua's grip tightened. Arya's staff lit. Eli and Caden smiled at the same time. No, Eli said, voice layered with something ancient. We're replacements. And the sky above them cracked open.
Chapter 220. Angry Alfred.
The moment the sky cracked overhead, the endlands began to shift. Not crumble, not fall, just change. Like it knew what was coming, and wanted to look away. Adam took one step forward, eyes locked on Eli and the now transformed Caden. His hand clenched, golden white light surging down his arm like living law ready to strike judgment. But before he could move, a hand caught his shoulder. Firm, burning. Big bro, came the voice. Low, controlled, but smoldering underneath. Let me do this one.
Adam paused.
He looked back, and saw him.
Alfred.
Gone was the teasing grin. Gone was the boy who turned chaos into jokes. What stood there now was a furnace given form. His eyes were molten, his coat peeled back, revealing flame-scarred armor etched with ancient markings. His hair whipped in the searing heat now rising from his skin, embers dancing like war banners. The ground beneath him blackened with every breath. Joshua blinked. Oh hell, he's serious. Aurora exhaled. That's not just Alfred. Vale gave a low whistle. That's the monarch of flames. Alfred stepped past Adam, his boots leaving smoldering prints in the bones of the Endlands. He didn't say anything to Eli or Caden. He just looked at them, and they felt it. You pretended to be my nephew. The words hit harder than any punch. You conspired to destroy the only people I've ever called family. He raised his hand. The air ignited. You made me angry. Eli took a small step back, his smug grin faltering. Oh no, he's pissed. Adam turned away, his voice sharp. Finish this, Alfred, and then meet us. He tore space open beside him, a rift of spiraling golden sigils and burning light. The celestial plane. He looked back once at his brother, nodded, then vanished through the gate with Aurora, Arya, Joshua, Alice, and Vale following. The moment the portal sealed behind them, everything went quiet. Alfred flexed his fingers once, and the entire basin exploded in flame. Flame versus void. Caden lunged first, raw power bursting from his fists like black comets. Alfred met him head-on, fist colliding with fist. Boom! The impact created a shockwave that vaporized the sky. They flew apart. Caden slammed into a floating rock pillar, blasting it to shards. Alfred didn't land. He walked on air, fire stepping beneath his boots like the world rewrote itself to hold him. Caden shot toward him again, arms coated in writhing shadows. Alfred sidestepped, spun midair, and elbowed him in the spine, crashing him back into the ground below. Then came Eli. His wings unfolded, slashing reality open in jagged lines of anti-space. He hurled a spear of raw origin energy at Alfred's chest. Alfred caught it. The entire Endlands winced. He gripped the spear tight and snapped it in half. "Try harder," he said. Eli screamed and rushed in. Claws of compressed dimension energy slashed toward Alfred's face. Alfred raised his hand, and a wall of dragonfire erupted in an arc, catching Eli mid-swing. Whoosh! Eli flew backward, crashing into Caden's recovering body. The smoke didn't have time to settle. Alfred raised both hands to the sky. The world changed. Red, orange, gold. The sky above ignited like the birth of a new sun, and runes carved themselves into the clouds. Domain, crimson crown. Flames rained down like swords. The very space warped, Alfred's dominion fully unleashed. Nothing here burned except what he allowed. And right now, he allowed everything. Caden screamed, forming void shields with his arms. Too slow, too small. Alfred appeared behind him, faster than light, faster than time could blink. He punched through the shield and Caden's chest. Shadow sprayed like black blood. Eli roared, his entire body unraveling into fractured tendrils. He reformed behind Alfred and fired a blast of pure origin flame. Alfred turned, one palm raised. Boom! The attack slammed into him point blank. Dust. Silence. Then, a glow inside the dust cloud. Alfred walked out, completely untouched. Eyes glowing. Teeth gritted. My turn. He vanished, and reappeared midair, with both fists ablaze in white-hot flame. He slammed them downward. Cinderfall, a beam of absolute fire, the kind that only obeyed him, crashed into Eli and Caden, locking them in a prison of collapsing temperature and pressure. They screamed, but it wasn't pain. It was humiliation. They were being overwritten. Alfred descended slowly, walking through the beam like it didn't touch him. As he neared the edge of their suffering, he raised a single finger. One spark. It detonated the entire basin. Krakum! The ground split for miles. Reality peeled like wet paper. When the fire finally faded, Caden was on one knee, his form twitching, one arm missing. Eli floated above him, breath heaving, his wings torn and eyes wide with rage. Alfred stood at the center, unburned, unbothered. You're not replacements, he said, voice low and final. You're just disappointments. Caden screamed, forming a massive black sword with his remaining arm. He charged again. Alfred raised his own hand, and for the first time, he called it a blade of living fire, longer than any weapon should be, made from the first flame the gods ever feared. Infernastra. It burned so hot it didn't glow. It just was. Caden swung. Alfred swung back. Clang. Only one blade survived. The void sword shattered on contact. Alfred's blade didn't stop. He spun, and with a scream that split the Endlands in half, he cleaved Caden clean in two. Eli tried to flee, tried to open a gate, but Alfred pointed, and flames shot through space itself. The portal closed before it opened. Eli froze, back turned. You took my parents, Alfred said, walking forward. You pretended to be family. Eli turned, desperation leaking into his voice.
Alfred, listen.
Alfred snapped his fingers, and Eli's body ignited from the inside out. No fire.
No spectacle.
Just heat, so hot that even time hesitated. Eli dropped, twitched, then disintegrated. Only ash remained. Alfred turned slowly. The Endlands were silent again. And this time, they stayed that way. He looked at the sky. The tear Adam had made still pulsed, waiting. Alfred took one breath, slid Infernastra across his back, and stepped into the light. Big Bro's gonna owe me a drink for that.